Chapter 2057. When Lu Yi brought Ma Shangxi and Yu Ming to the World Edge Pavilion, another vampire, Rizhao, just happened to arrive. Vampires usually had a slender physique, but the vampire Rizhao who came was burly. At first glance, he looked like a ferocious beast that walked upright. There were two attendants behind him, and one of them had Yu Yao's cultivation. It was unknown if they were his blood servants. Lu Yi met his gaze and immediately saw the disdain in the other's eyes. The next moment, the two figures stood at the entrance of the World Edge Pavilion, staring at each other. Their auras surged as they clashed fiercely. Ling Zhe was the third strongest in the Blood Jade realm, while the burly one in front of him was the fourth. His name was Feng Wudi. He wasn't originally called Feng Wudi, but he changed his name after returning from a trip. In any case, a vampire's name had nothing to do with their family's inheritance, and there were no rules. They could call themselves whatever they wanted. Most importantly, Ling Zhe was not on good terms with Feng Wudi. The territories of the two holy sages were close to each other, and the blood breeds under them would often have some friction. Furthermore, Feng Wudi had always felt that he was stronger than Ling Zhe, so he could not stand the fact that Ling Zhe was ranked third. The two saint sovereigns had many years of enmity between them. Now that they met, it was natural for them to clash. Fortunately, Lu Ye's foundation was strong enough. Otherwise he would have been exposed. Even so, he couldn't hold on for too long. After all, he was only an early-stage Rizhao. Pretending to be a late-stage Rizhao consumed too much energy, and he might not be able to continue at any time. But at this juncture he couldn't back down. If he did, he wouldn't be Ling Zhe anymore. His expression was normal, but he was secretly anxious. He could only hold on for 30 breaths of time at most. Any longer and he would be exposed. He secretly made up his mind. If he really couldn't hold on, he would have to ask Ma Shangxi to help. Fortunately, after a short while, a dignified voice shouted, "Enough!" The next moment, an aura stronger than his and Feng Wudi's descended, forcibly separating the two entangled auras. Lu Yi and Feng Wudi both took a few steps back. When they looked again, an old vampire appeared in their eyes. Both Lu Yi and Feng Wudi bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Holy Master Qiu Tian." In the Blood Jade realm, Tong Tian was the oldest and had the highest seniority. Most importantly, he was the strongest. He had reached the peak of the Sunshine realm many years ago, and his holiness was stronger than Ling Zhe and Feng Wudi. He was the ruler of the entire Blood Jade realm. Today's meeting is of great importance. Don't make trouble in front of the insectoid emissary. Tong Tian reprimanded. He also knew about the enmity between Ling Zhe and Feng Wudi. He had tried to resolve it in the past but to no avail, so he no longer cared about it. Understood. Both Lu Yi and Feng Wudi hurriedly complied. Tong Tian glanced at them again, then stepped into the World Edge Pavilion. Just as he entered, another vampire, Rizhao, arrived. He didn't even look at the two of them and entered directly. Lu Yi and Feng Wudi didn't say anything because the second strongest person of the Blood Jade realm was Jianghu, who was also at the peak of the Sunshine realm. She was also the most isolated vampire in the entire Blood Jade realm. She didn't even have her own territory, and only cultivated peacefully on a spiritual mountain. Usually, even the other vampires Rizhao rarely saw her. If it weren't for this meeting, she wouldn't have appeared in such a place. After Jianghu walked in, Lu Yi and Feng Wudi both stepped forward and rushed into the World Edge Pavilion. In the end, no one took the initiative. On the second floor of the World Edge Pavilion, there was a long oval table. When Lu Yi walked in with his two blood servants, he saw that there were already 3 figures sitting there. 2 of them were the 2 vampires at the peak of the Sunshine realm that he saw just now. The other one had obvious characteristics of the insect race. He had a thick carapace on his body and a long torso with 6 arms. Lu Yi didn't know what kind of insect he was. From Ling Zhe's memories, Lu Yi didn't find much information about this insect race messenger. After he came to the Blood Jade realm, he only met Tong Tian. The other vampires had never seen him before. At this moment, the insect race messenger was sitting at the highest position, with Tong Tian and Jianghu on his left and right. Lu Yi glanced around and sat down at the seat below Tong Tian. Feng Wudi sat directly opposite him and glared at Lu Yi fiercely, as if he wanted to eat him alive. Lu Yi didn't hold back and responded with the same glare. Tong Tian suddenly looked behind Lu Yi and asked with a smile, "Ling Zhe, is this your new blood warrior?" Lu Yi quickly retracted his gaze and replied in Ling Zhe's tone, "Yes, his name is Ma Shangxi. He's a citizen of my territory. He went out for a trip and obtained some opportunities, which allowed him to reach the peak of the Sunshine realm." Ma Shangxi hurriedly bowed, "Greetings, Saint Venerables." Feng Wudi sneered, A citizen of your territory? Aren't those in your territory your descendants? Hurry up and do a bloodline tracing. Who knows, this blood servant might be your son or grandson. Treat him well in the future. Lu Yi slammed the table and roared, "What did you say?" Feng Wuti looked at him with his nostrils. "What? You dare to do it but don't dare to admit it? Who doesn't know what kind of person you are, Saint Venerable Lingzhe?" He then looked at Yu Meng beside Ma Shangxi. "This is your daughter, right? Diske, your scent is so strong that I can smell it from so far away. I'll tear you apart." Lu Yi looked furious and stood up with killing intent. "Enough." Tong Tian looked annoyed and glared coldly at Feng Wuti. "Stop talking." Although there were some things that everyone knew, it wasn't good to talk about, especially when Ling Zhe wasn't the only Saint Venerable with this problem. "You sit down too." Tong Tian glanced at Lu Yi. Lu Yi said angrily, "Saint Venerable Tong Tian, it's him. Sit down." Tong Tian's expression turned cold. Lu Yi reluctantly sat down. Tong Tian shook his head helplessly. He wanted to ask about Ma Shangxi's situation, but he lost interest and turned to the insectoid emissary. "Please excuse me." The insectoid emissary waved his hand. "It's fine. It's just that the situation is about to descend. This is an opportunity for both our races. The insectoids hope that the blood race can be more united. I'll do my best." Tong Tian nodded. Feng Wuti asked curiously, "Emissary, how should I address you?" The insectoid emissary said, "I'm Lice Dragon." Feng Wuti said, "Fellow Lice Dragon, I'm a straightforward person, so I'll be straight to the point. This situation, what does it mean?" Lu Ye's ears perked up. He also wanted to know this and couldn't help but give Feng Wuti a thumbs up. Lice Dragon shook his head. Tong Tian said, "Once everyone is here, fellow Lice Dragon will explain in detail. Don't worry." Feng Wuti had no choice but to wait. More and more blood race Saint Venerables arrived. After an incense stick's worth of time, everyone who could make it had arrived. Aside from the Lice Dragon, there were 8 other blood race Saint Venerables present. There was also a blood warrior named Ma Shangxi, and the rest were Yu Yao who had followed the Saint Venerables to attend the ceremony. Those who could stand here were all highly valued by the Saint Venerables. There were less than 30 people in the entire pavilion. Tong Tian looked at Lice Dragon and nodded. "Everyone is here." The Laos Dragon stood up and looked around. "I'm sure you've all heard about the arrival of the major influence. Fellow Taoist Feng Wuti just asked me what the major influence meant. I'm sure you're all curious about that." All the holy sovereigns listened attentively. The situation is about to descend. It's an opportunity, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. All you need to know is that when this opportunity arrives, our insect race and blood race might be able to break free from the oppression of the other races. Not only that, we might even be able to stand above all the other races and become the rulers of the universe. Those few words stunned all the blood race holy sovereigns. Even the most pure Zhuang Huayue couldn't help but glance at Lice Dragon. She didn't know where he got his confidence from. Lice Dragon looked furious. "Since ancient times, our insect race and blood race have always lived with our tails between our legs. The other races see us as ferocious beasts and are hostile to us. If it weren't for the fact that our 2 races aren't weak, we would have been wiped out a long time ago. After so many years of humiliation and suffering, we will become the rulers of the universe." He was in high spirits as if he could already see that day coming. On the other hand, the blood race holy sovereigns didn't have much of a reaction. It was mainly because Lice Dragon's words were too vague. For so many years, the insect race and blood race had lived like this. Suddenly, someone told them that their days were coming to an end. Not only that, they could also become the rulers of the universe. No one could agree with that. Feng Wuti couldn't help but ask, "Fellow Lice Dragon, it's very hard for us to believe what you're saying. Plus, you didn't explain what the general situation is." Lice Dragon smiled. "Haven't you all noticed that there have been some strange changes in the universe recently?" Feng Wuti was startled. Then he seemed to have thought of something. "You mean the activity of the universe's energy? That's only one of them." Lice Dragon nodded. "If you've investigated some of the space wonders, you should be able to notice that the laws inside many of them have changed." The holy sovereigns were startled. If it was just the activity of the universe's energy, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, if the laws inside the space wonders had changed, then it was no small matter. Space wonders were born along with the universe. The laws inside wouldn't change easily. Once there was a change, it wouldn't be a small matter. If there was more than one space wonder, then it would be even bigger. Lu Yi couldn't help but fall into deep thought. The changes in the Wanxiang Sea proved that Lice Dragon's words were true. There was also the insect path that connected the 9 states to the Wanxiang Sea. Previously he only thought that he was lucky. When the 9 states was in danger, the insect path just happened to be connected. However, what if this was also the result of some changes in the universe? End of chapter. Chapter 2058. This is the arrival of the general trend? A vampire Saint Master asked in confusion. But what did this change in the entire universe have to do with the 2 races? This is only a sign of the general trend. The Louse Dragon tapped the table. Now that this sign has appeared, the trend will arrive in a few decades or even a century. By then it will be the insect race and blood race's chance. Tong Tian pondered for a moment before asking, Dao friend, there's something I don't understand. The Louse Dragon looked at him. Dao friend Tong Tian, please speak. This trend will definitely affect the entire cosmos. I won't ask what will happen to the cosmos when the time comes. I just want to know why it's only our 2 races' chance? Do the other races have nothing to do with this? The Louse Dragon smiled as if it had expected this. Of course they have something to do with it. It's just that the other races don't have our advantages. To them, the general trend will only bring disaster. Why is that? Zhuang Huayue was confused. This was what all the vampire saints didn't understand. The Louse Dragon smiled mysteriously. This naturally has to do with the uniqueness of our 2 races. The insect race and blood race are both special existences in the entire cosmos. Otherwise, why would they be rejected and suppressed by all living beings? Lu Yi thought to himself, isn't it because the insect and blood race have done all sorts of evil? Wherever the insect race went, the realms would be annihilated. Wherever the blood race went, all living beings would be annihilated. Such a race was naturally hated by everyone. But now, the Louse Dragon was talking about the uniqueness of the 2 races. Tong Tian asked, what's so special about our 2 races? The Louse Dragon glanced at him and shook its head. I don't know either, but this was passed down by the high priest of our race. I'm just telling the truth. The high priest of your race. Tong Tian's expression turned serious. The high priest of the insect race was a legendary powerhouse. No one knew how long he had lived until now. It was said that his strength had reached a level of mastery. The vampire saints might not have believed the Louse Dragon's words alone, but if it came from the high priest of the insect race, then they had to reconsider. The Louse Dragon spoke again. I'm not the only one contacting the nobles. There are other envoys from the nobles' domains. Before we left, I remember the high priest saying that the nobles should have been able to sense the situation, but because of the fall of the blood ancestor, the nobles lost this ability. When the blood ancestor was mentioned, the Saint Venerable's expressions suddenly became pious. Everything that the blood race had now was given to them by the blood ancestor. Even though the blood ancestor had fallen tens of thousands of years ago, her bloodline was still being passed down and had occupied a place in the starry sky. The Lice Dragon's words made Tong Tian think, fellow Taoist, you mean that the high priest can sense the general trend? The Louse Dragon nodded. That's right. That's why we contacted the vampires. We hope that the nobles can consolidate their forces and wait. Tong Tian asked again, did the high priest mention if there are any other experts who can sense the general trend? The high priest said that there might be experts from other races who have sensed something, but he is the only one in the entire galaxy who can clearly sense the general situation. Other than him there is no one else. There was a moment of silence. After a long while Yuan Tian said in a slow voice, fellow Taoist, we have full faith in the high priestess's words, but you're not very clear about the overall situation, so even if we want to cooperate, we don't know where to start. Clearly he wanted to gather more information. The Louse Dragon shook its head. It's not that I'm unclear but that I don't know much myself. Everything I've said today is merely conveying the high priest's words. He didn't mention it much so we can't learn more about it. Fellow Taoist, you should understand that the high priest is old and in a state of hibernation most of the time. If it weren't for the fact that this matter is too important, he wouldn't have woken up. He has some special orders. After a slight pause he continued, that's why I've come to Bloodjade this time. If the nobles want to grasp this opportunity, then please make a decision as soon as possible. The Saint Venerables of the blood race looked at each other, unable to make a decision. According to the insectoids, the blood race wanted to consolidate their forces and wait for the general trend to descend. Since they wanted to consolidate, then the blood race's forces had to be concentrated. However, the blood race's domains were extremely scattered, so it wouldn't be easy to accomplish this. When the time came, They would definitely have to give up most of the domains and gather all the experts in one domain. However, the blood race had been doing this for so many years. How could they do this just because of some uncertain information? I've heard about the general trend. A voice suddenly sounded in the silence. Many pairs of eyes looked over and found that the one who spoke was Saint Lingze. Tong Tian was curious. Lingze, where did you hear about this? Lu Yi turned to look at him and said casually, I wonder if Saint Venerable Tong Tian has heard of Feng Rumo? Tong Tian's expression changed. That Feng Rumo who tried to control the Merak sword but was hunted down by the Merak sword chi? Lu Yi was stunned. The reason he mentioned Feng Rumo was mainly because this person's level was high enough and had nothing to do with him. Most importantly, Feng Rumo was very mysterious. Who knew that Tong Tian actually knew this person and even mentioned the Merak sword? It seemed that the sword chi that hunted down Feng Rumo was really the power of the Merak sword? After calming himself down, Lu Yi nodded. That's him. A Saint Venerable asked curiously, Lingze, how did you come to know Feng Rumo? Lu Yi suddenly revealed a look of reminiscence. That was many years ago. This senior met him by chance when I was traveling outside. He had been hunted down for who knows how many years and was in a sorry state, so he asked me for some food. Hearing him say that an expert like Feng Rumo actually asked for some food, the Saint Venerable's expressions became very strange. However, Lu Yi said it calmly and was not lying. After all, it really happened. Then, in return, he told me some things. It was about the general trend. He said. At this point, Lu Yi paused and looked around. Under the attention of the Saint Venerables, he activated his blood technique and enveloped the surroundings. In an instant, the entire World Edge Pavilion was covered in blood. The Saint Venerables did not mind. After all, this matter might involve a huge secret. It was always right to be careful. What did he say? An impatient Saint Venerable could not wait and asked. Lu Yi turned his head and looked in his direction. He continued to activate his blood technique and smiled. He said, all of you should die. He had already found out what he needed to find out. It seemed that the Lice Dragon had no other information to provide. Since that was the case, there was no need to delay any longer. All the Saint Venerables were stunned. They did not understand what Lu Yi meant. Feng Wudi was even more furious. However, almost at the same time as Lu Yi finished speaking, a sudden change occurred. In the blood-red wrapping, spirit runes suddenly appeared. Almost every Saint Venerable had a corresponding spirit rune in front of them. At the same time in Fengsuan Mountain, the talent tree clone's magic power surged, and void spirit runes appeared beside it. The Rizhao of Fengsuan Mountain, who had already received his orders, also joined in at this moment. On the second floor of the World Edge Pavilion, a dense blood-red color surged and a sea of blood spread out. The Rizhao of Fengsuan Mountain used the void spirit runes to teleport here. They did not care and only followed Lu Ye's orders. They instantly unleashed their strongest killing moves and charged forward. This sudden change caused the expressions of all the Saint Venerables to change drastically. No one expected that in the Blood Jade realm, where so many strong people gathered, they would be ambushed. And the instigator was Saint Venerable Lingze. These Saint Venerables reacted quickly. Almost at the same time as they sensed that something was wrong, they began to activate their own power. However, an extremely terrifying Saint Venerable suddenly exploded from the blood-red color. Muffled groans sounded one after another. Even Saint Venerable Qiu Tian, who was the strongest present, felt his qi and blood stagnate. His strength suddenly plummeted. It was a strength of Saint Venerable that he had never felt before. The Saint Venerable that he had always been proud of was so weak in front of such strength that it could not withstand a single blow. It was almost suppressed without any resistance. Then a rune sword appeared in his vision. Lu Yi purposely assigned Qiu Tian to Qin Xianhai, who had come to support him. The powerful vitality that belonged to Rizhao collapsed one after another at this moment. After a brief moment of chaos, all the Blood Clan members present, regardless of their strength or cultivation, died on the spot. Even the Yu Yao attendants that they had brought in were all killed in the aftermath of the battle. Moreover, all the Saint Venerables were distracted by Lu Ye's mystifying act and were suppressed by his terrifying saint nature. It was natural for such a result to occur. Only Lice Dragon survived. After all, he was not a Blood Clan member and his strength was not bad. Without the suppression of his bloodline, he would not be so easily killed. At this moment, Lice Dragon was dumbfounded. His mind was in a mess and he had no idea what had happened. He had been listening attentively to Lu Ye's words just now, but then something happened so suddenly. He could sense that Qiu Tian and the other Blood Clan members were all dead. This made his hair stand on end. He had no idea who had attacked. Even a strong person like Qiu Tian had been killed without being able to fight back. His survival instinct made him want to escape, but Lu Ye's blood technique had many restrictions on him. He was also entangled by Rizhao of the hominid clan. How could he have the strength to escape? He used his divine telekinesis to sense the surroundings. He just wanted to understand what was going on. However, it was too late. After killing their opponents, Rizhao and the hominid clan members all looked at Lice Dragon, who was still stubbornly resisting. His body stiffened. Capture this one alive. Don't kill it. Lu Ye's voice was heard. Almost at the same time that the World Edge Pavilion attacked, a group of uninvited guests came to the bug hive hovering in the starry sky beside the Blood Jade Realm. Rizhao, Lu Zhen, and Li Wanning led a group of elite hominid cultivators to the bug hive. There was still Rizhao of the insect clan left in the hive. He did not follow Lice Dragon to the Blood Jade Realm, but his strength was only at the early stage of Rizhao. He was no match for Lu Zhen and Li Wanning. End of chapter. Chapter 2059. The chaos inside the World's Edge Pavilion only lasted for a short 10 breaths before it subsided. Although the members of the Blood Clan outside sensed the powerful magic power fluctuations inside, none of them dared to barge in rashly. When the entire World's Edge Pavilion shattered and many unfamiliar figures charged out, the members of the Blood Clan outside could no longer resist. Wu Qima personally escorted the captured Lice Dragon. With the cooperation of Lu Ye's original body and talent tree clone, they sent him into the western Fengsuan mountain through the void spirit pattern. Once there, with Lu Ye's talent tree clone guarding, the heavily injured Lice Dragon could no longer escape. The battle in the Blood Jade world was not over yet. The blood race in the World Edge Pavilion was quickly slaughtered. Many hominins scattered in all directions, each finding a direction and rushing out. Blood flowed like a river wherever they passed. Not only that, in the ruins of the World Edge Pavilion, Lu Yi maintained a huge void spirit pattern. From the void spirit pattern, hominin cultivators constantly came to support. According to the previously formed teams, they attacked in all directions. Today was the day the Blood Jade world was destroyed. Ma Shangxi and Lu Ye's newly recruited blood warriors were not idle either. Although they were all from the blood race, now that they were under Lu Ye's command, they could only follow his will. Moreover, the blood race were not kind people. Now it was just a matter of winning and losing. The entire realm fell into chaos in a very short time. Except for a few lucky blood race cultivators who sensed that something was wrong escaped into the starry sky, the rest were not lucky. The hominin race would not show mercy to the blood race, nor would they care about bullying the weak. From the hominin race's point of view, all the blood race deserved to die. At this time, Lu Yi had already arrived somewhere in the Blood Jade world. The entire Blood Jade world was similar to the Blood Extreme world. If the Blood Extreme world was the left arm of the Blood Ancestor, then the Blood Jade world was the right arm of the Blood Ancestor. Therefore, the overall structure of the two great realms was basically the same, but there were some subtle differences. There was no need for him to contribute to the battle in the realm. The blood race was all dead, and the hominin race was destined to win. What he had to consider now was to repeat the events of the past and let the western Fengsuan mountain bring the Blood Jade world back to the 9 states. Of course, it was not difficult for him to do something that he had already done once. Right now, he was at the crook of the Blood Ancestor's right arm. This was a node of the Blood Ancestor's right arm and the node of the entire realm. Standing in such a position, Lu Yi clearly felt that his connection with the Blood Jade realm had become much closer. He immediately understood that he had found the right place. Following that feeling, he used his means to go deeper into the ground. After spending half a day, Lu Yi finally arrived at a certain location underground. At this place, his connection with the Blood Jade realm became closer. This was undoubtedly one of the Blood Ancestor's spirit cavities. Lu Yi sat down cross-legged and immersed himself in it. Very quickly, his enormous consciousness covered the entire domain with this spiritual cavity as the starting point. Only Lu Yi, who had refined the precious blood of the Blood Ancestor, could do this. Even a member of the blood race like Sacred Venerate Qiu Tian was not qualified to do so. All of a sudden, Lu Yi felt his body become extremely heavy. The feeling he had felt before resurfaced in his mind once more, as if he was wearing heavy armor. He saw that the entire Blood Jade realm was in an abyss of suffering. Countless blood race cultivators were fleeing for their lives, and numerous humanoid cultivators were wantonly slaughtering. He saw several of his blood servants following his orders, sweeping through everything in their path. There were also many terrified blood slaves. The purge of the Blood Jade realm took only a few days. Although the entire realm was not small, with so many humanoid cultivators taking action, the blood race was powerless in the face of absolute power. A few days later, the dust had settled. Apart from Lu Ye's blood servants, there were no more blood race cultivators left in the realm. However, there were still many blood slaves enslaved by the blood race. At this moment, they were all panicking and at a loss for what to do. Under the control of the Talent Tree clone, the Heart Mountain in the west had arrived at a suitable location. Lu Ye's main body was there. He reached out and a pestle that was several meters long appeared in his hand. This was the ancestral artifact he had obtained from the blood extinction realm. With this ancestral artifact, Lu Yi could better mobilize the blood extinction realm. He did not know if he could use it here. He might as well give it a try. With the ancestral artifact in hand, Lu Yi activated his magic power and raised his brow. It worked, because the heavy feeling on his body was obviously much lighter. Under Lu Ye's control, the entire blood jade realm began to shake. At the front of his huge right arm, 6 fingers spread open and then slowly closed, grasping the Heart Mountain in the west. In the starry sky, the sunshine cultivators of the humanoid race gathered and quietly watched this scene. Although I've seen it once, seeing it again today is still shocking. Jianghu sighed. It was hard to imagine how strong the blood ancestor was back then. How could such a powerful existence be killed by the humanoid race's ancestor? Even his corpse was torn apart. Compared to the might of their ancestor, although they had reached the Sunshine Realm today, they were still inferior. The Talent Tree clone lifted the isolation of the Heart Mountain in the west. As a result, the west was once again pulled by the core and swept into the depths of the starry sky, moving the Blood Jade Realm. However, because they had passed through a bug path before arriving here, it would take a few more years for the west to return to the 9 states. But compared to the harvest, a few years of waiting was worth it. From now on, the Blood Jade Realm would no longer exist in this galaxy. Everything was settled. A day later, many experts gathered at the Heart Mountain in the west. Lu Yi had also returned. There are many blood slaves in the Blood Jade Realm. They've all moved to the headquarters of the Heart Mountain. However, they've been enslaved by the kindred for generations and have long since lost their original natures. It might take a few more generations for them to slowly recover. Ran Dongxing reported the current situation. Against the Blood Clan, the Homunculus clan would not show mercy, but the enslaved blood thralls were also pitiful people. If they were left alone during the migration process of the Blood Jade Realm, not many of these weak blood thralls would survive. After all, the migration of such a large realm in the starry sky would cause the environment of the realm to change greatly. Moving them to the Heart Mountain in the west was the only way. This was the consensus of all the Sunshine cultivators. Once the west reached the 9 states, these blood slaves could be sent to the 9 states to settle down. How's the situation with the Lice Dragon? Lu Yi turned to look at Su Pu, who had come from the south. After the Lice Dragon was sent over, it was Su Pu who cooperated with Xia Yingyue to interrogate it. It was mainly Su Pu who had learned some torture methods in the past, and it happened to be useful this time. The other Sunshine cultivators also looked over. Although they had obtained a lot of information from the World Edge Pavilion's meeting through Lu Ye's Talent Tree clone, there were many things that were unclear. It would be better if they could get more accurate information from the Lice Dragon. Su Pu shook his head and said, "The Lice Dragon doesn't know much. What he knows is what the insect race high priest told him. He didn't hide anything from the kindred Sunshine cultivators." After a few days of torture, the Lice Dragon was already exhausted, and even its soul was almost shattered. Under such means, Su Pu believed that the Lice Dragon couldn't hide anything. All the Sunshine cultivators frowned. Why was the arrival of the general trend an opportunity for the insect race and the blood race? Why was the insect race high priest the only one who could sense the general trend? Why couldn't the other experts? There were many things that they didn't understand and couldn't find anyone to ask. However, it was undeniable that there were some changes in the starry sky, and the activity of the starry sky spirit energy was only the most basic. Junior brother Lu, the Wanxiangxi, is a mixed bag of good and bad people. There are many exchanges with various galaxies, and it's convenient to contact them. Perhaps we'll need your help in this matter. Qin Xianhai turned to look at Lu Yi. Lu Yi nodded and said, "I have the same plan. When we return to the Wanxiangxi this time, I'll spread the news and see if anyone knows anything." Qin Xianhai nodded. "There's no rush. The insect race said that it'll take at least a few decades to 100 years, so there's still time to deal with it." Zhang Kuan said, "We'll pass by many galaxies in the west. When the time comes, we'll see if there's a chance to visit some of the bigger galaxies and find out the situation." Actually, the best way is to go to the Insect Emperor realm, capture the Insect Race High Priest and ask him in person. The Insect Emperor realm. Qin Xianhai shook his head slowly. That's not a place to trespass. Seeing his secretive look, Lu Yi was curious. What's so special about the Insect Emperor realm? After so many years of wandering the stars, his knowledge and experience had increased greatly. However, there were still some things that he didn't understand, such as the Insect Emperor realm. He only knew that this was the base camp of the insect race, and that all the hives floating in the stars came from the Insect Emperor realm. Qin Xianhai smiled bitterly. Junior brother, there's something you don't know. The Insect Emperor realm is essentially a huge magnetite star. The entire realm is made up of high-quality magnetite ores, and the magnetite force field is chaotic and dense. No matter how strong you are, you won't be able to do anything if you fall in. Lu Ye's expression turned serious. The magnetite star. He was no stranger to the magnetite force field. The chaotic explosion zone near the Jade Conch galaxy was filled with all kinds of chaotic magnetite force fields, and from time to time, there would be magnetite storms. It was extremely dangerous. It was unimaginable how strong the magnetite force field of a magnetite star made up purely of high-quality magnetite ores was. In such an environment, any cultivator's cultivation would drop drastically due to the interference of the magnetite force field. If Rizhao were to go in, he would probably only have Yu Yao's cultivation left. However, the special nature of the insect race gave them a natural resistance to strange forces like the magnetite force field. Lu Yi had experienced this for a long time. When the Nine States Army attacked the underground hives of the insect race, they used the insect race's blood to refine some special secret medicine. They smeared it on the cultivators' bodies to resist the interference of the magnetite force field. It could be said that the Insect Emperor realm was a place that was naturally suitable for the insect race. No other race could establish themselves there. Thank you for the reward from the Chief of the Young Deer Alliance. Thank you for your kindness. Long live the Chief. End of chapter. Chapter 2060. Lu Yi had always been curious about one thing. Since the insect and blood races were hated by everyone in the universe, why didn't the other races work together to destroy them? Logically speaking, it was possible. No matter how strong the insect and blood races were, they couldn't stop the other races working together. Now he slowly understood. The insect and blood races both had their own foundation. The Insect Emperor realm's uniqueness was the reason why the insect race could sit back and relax. It could be said that as long as the insect race occupied the Insect Emperor realm, they would never face the threat of extinction. While the Blood Kindred's region did not have as many unique advantages as the Insect Emperor's region, every region had their own ancestral implement. They could use the ancestral implement to mobilize the power of the region, and they were equally capable of protecting themselves. It seemed easy to take down the Blood Jade realm and the Blood Extreme realm, but that was because Lu Yi played a huge role. When they attacked the Blood Extreme realm, he stopped the Blood race from mobilizing the realm's power by himself. This time the Blood race was even more miserable. He worked together with the dwarf race's Sunshine to wipe them all out. Even a top Saint Venerable like Tong Tian died mysteriously, not to mention the other Blood race members. Lu Ye's uniqueness could be said to be the Blood race's nemesis. The matter in the Blood Jade realm was completely over. A few days later, Lu Yi brought Qin Xianhai and the others back to the core. They reaped a lot from the battle. Not only did they get the Blood Jade realm, but they also got the entire realm's resources. It was an unimaginable number. When they returned from the west and unified Mount Minuscule, Little Nine could also devour the Blood Jade realm's resources. It was killing two birds with one stone. Lu Yi didn't stay at Mount Minuscule for long and quickly left. Sunshine's cultivation, the soul-subduing secret skill, and the transformation of the talent tree required time and resources. It was inconvenient to do these things outside, so he had to go to the Wanxiang Sea and the ancestral land of the soul race. He didn't know what the insect race was talking about, but he felt a sense of urgency. He had to improve his cultivation as much as possible before the arrival of the insect race. That way, no matter what changes the insect race would bring, he would have the ability to protect himself and his family. The 9 regions had become bigger again. Today's 9 regions was more than twice as large as before. This was obviously the result of Yu Luo's completion of the fusion. Now, the 3 great realms of the entire galaxy had merged into one and were truly bound together. Lu Yi didn't intend to return to the 9 regions, but he soon sensed something. He revealed a surprised expression and turned around to rush in the direction of the 9 regions. Not long after, Lu Yi landed in front of the Guardian Hall of the Tian continent. Looking up, he saw a familiar burly figure standing under the reincarnation tree avatar. His hands were behind his back as he looked at the seemingly withered reincarnation tree avatar with a look of reminiscence on his face. Lu Yi walked towards him. After a short while, she stopped beside him and softly called out, "Senior." Ma Bin turned to look at him and smiled. He raised his hand and patted the reincarnation tree's avatar. "When I was young, I was playful with a senior martial brother. We jumped up and down on this tree. One day we accidentally broke a branch and got beaten up. We couldn't get out of bed for a few days. My master didn't show any mercy." The corners of Lu Ye's eyes twitched. He didn't know what to say. It seemed that Senior Ma Bin also had a complete childhood. The location of the Guardian Hall was decided by Lu Yi. It was mainly because the reincarnation tree's avatar was here. The Guardian of the 9 regions could take care of this avatar. This place was also the ruins of the strongest sect in the 9 regions 10,000 years ago, the Human Emperor sect. Yang Qing had told Lu Yi about this. Ma Bin was from the Human Emperor sect. It could be said that he grew up here. In the past 10,000 years, even though Ma Bin knew that the 9 regions might be in some corner of the starry sky, he had never thought of looking for it. Even when he met Lu Yi and learned about the recent situation of the 9 regions, he didn't want to come back and take a look. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but that he didn't dare to. He was afraid that his troubles would bring disaster to the 9 regions, so he tried his best to weaken or even cut off his connection with the 9 regions. But now he didn't have such concerns. In the 10,000 Elephant Sea, he got more information about the 9 regions and learned about the battle between the 9 regions and Zixian. The 9 regions now had enough power to protect themselves. So he came back to take a look at his homeland that he had been away from for a long time. At first glance, although the current 9 regions was not at its peak, the current prosperity was beyond his expectations. He was relieved. "Senior, have you recovered from your injuries?" Lu Yi asked. "Almost." Ma Bin nodded. "This is all thanks to you." He didn't expect that Lu Yi, a junior of the 9 regions, would be able to do so well in a place like the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Now, he had even become the master of the 10,000 Elephant Sea. This was something that even the Human Emperor couldn't do back then, and Lu Yi was only in the early sunshine stage. If it weren't for Lu Yi, his previous injuries would have gradually worsened, and his cultivation would slowly disappear. He would have died of old age in some corner of the world. "Senior, you're too polite. Your injuries were caused by me. I haven't thanked you yet." Lu Yi sighed. When the Azura field closed that day, if it weren't for Ma Bin protecting him, he wouldn't have fought with Chang Feng and the others to the death. It was a pity that Chang Feng ran too fast and couldn't catch up with him that day with Xiao Gua. Otherwise he could have taken revenge on Ma Bin as well. Ma Bin didn't say anything else. He just stretched out his hand and grabbed at the air. An extremely mysterious power surged out, and then an ancient disc appeared in his hand. Lu Yi was stunned. "This is..." He felt an extremely familiar aura from the disc. Xiao Jiao's rabbit figure suddenly appeared beside him. He bared his teeth and pounced at Ma Bin, shouting, "Give it back to me." Lu Yi had never seen Xiao Jiao so anxious before. He was surprised, but he wasn't nervous because he knew that Ma Bin wouldn't do anything to Xiao Jiao. Ma Bin chuckled and waved his other hand. Xiao Jiao, who was pouncing aggressively, flew back and fell into Lu Ye's arms. Lu Yi hugged him. Xiao Jiao's rabbit eyes turned red. The entire 9 provinces shook as a terrifying aura gathered in the sky. Lu Yi quickly patted Xiao Jiao. "Senior doesn't have any evil intentions. Don't be nervous." "Artifact spirit?" Ma Bin looked at Xiao Jiao with interest. "That's unexpected." He asked Xiao Jiao, "Do you recognize me?" Xiao Jiao said angrily, "I don't recognize you. Don't try to get close to me. Then return my main body to me. Otherwise Lu Yi will beat you to death." He turned to Lu Yi and said, "Lu Yi, quickly go. You stole my main body." Lu Yi finally understood that the disc in Ma Bin's hand was Xiao Jiao's main body. No wonder the aura was so familiar. To be honest, all these years, Lu Yi only knew that Xiao Jiao was the artifact spirit of the Heavenly Fate Disc. As for what the Heavenly Fate Disc looked like, he really hadn't seen it. All this time he had only seen Xiao Jiao. But he didn't think that he would see it today. All right. Lu Yi comforted. "Senior Ma Bin is a cultivator of the Human Emperor sect from 10,000 years ago. Your main body was created by him, so he won't do you any harm." Xiao Jiao was dumbfounded. Ma Bin played with the Heavenly Fate Disc and slowly said, "Saying that I participated in the creation is just putting gold on my face. At that time, I had just been promoted to a constellation. Also, the Heavenly Fate Disc was actually not created. It was a treasure that was accidentally obtained by a top expert of my sect. We only thought of a way to activate its power. It is actually a spiritual treasure of a supreme treasure. Spiritual treasure? Lu Yi was stunned. He lowered his head to look at Xiaojiu. You are a spiritual treasure? Xiaojiu was dumbfounded. I didn't create it. Am I a spiritual treasure? That's why I am very curious. How did a spiritual treasure give birth to its own will? Ma Bin looked at Xiaojiu. Logically speaking, a spiritual treasure shouldn't have this kind of change. Lu Yi said, Xiaojiu's birth seems to be due to the combination of the artifact spirit of the heavenly fate disk and the will of the 9 states. That doesn't make sense. Ma Bin slowly shook his head. He looked at Xiaojiu and asked, Can you sense anything? Sense what? Xiaojiu asked back. Between spiritual treasures and supreme treasures, there is an invisible connection. Since you have already given birth to intelligence, you should be able to sense the corresponding supreme treasure. Xiaojiu shook his head. There is nothing. Ma Bin revealed a thoughtful expression. Clearly he didn't understand. Xiaojiu's eyes turned and he suddenly jumped out of Lu Ye's arms. Displaying a speed that Lu Yi had never seen before, he snatched the heavenly fate disk from Ma Bin's hands. In a flash, he disappeared without a trace. Only a complacent laughter could be heard. Xiaojiu's temperament is a bit childish. Lu Yi explained. Ma Bin nodded, not taking it to heart. He just said, Lu Yi, I have to go. Lu Yi was startled and immediately said, Senior doesn't need to worry about Chang Feng. Ma Bin said a few years ago that when he recovered from his injuries, he would go find Chang Feng and kill him to vent Lu Ye's anger. Now that he had recovered from his injuries, he naturally had to set off. It's not just about Chang Feng. Ma Bin waved his hand. When once cultivation reaches my level, there is no longer any room for improvement. This situation has been maintained for many years. But in recent years I suddenly felt something different. The entire starry sky seems to have undergone some wonderful changes, giving me the possibility of further improvement. So, I have to go out and take a look to find my future direction. In recent years? Lu Yi frowned. How long ago was that? Not many years. Why? Ma Bin looked at him. It's like this, Senior. This time, I went to the Western Heart Mountain and attacked a blood race realm. It just so happened that I encountered some things there. He immediately recounted the various things that happened in the Blood Jade realm, emphasizing the arrival of the great trend mentioned by the insect race. Senior is experienced and knowledgeable. Do you know what the great trend is? Lu Yi asked in the end. Ma Bin shook his head. I have never heard of it. If it is as you say, then these feelings I have in recent years, aren't they related to the great trend? Chapter 2061. Ma Bin's cultivation had reached a bottleneck many years ago. It was only in recent years that the bottleneck that bound him began to loosen a little. This was obviously related to the arrival of the general trend that Lu Yi mentioned. After thinking for a while, Ma Bin said, Although I've never heard of the arrival of a major force, I know that there are many top-notch sunshine in the starry sky. When they can't increase their cultivation, they will cultivate some special techniques. It is said that these techniques are used to prepare for a certain opportunity in the future. However, since ancient times, there have been countless sunshine who have done this, but they have never really been used. Lu Yi knew that he was talking about something like doppelgangers and inner alchemy techniques. Take Su Yuqing and Qin Xianhai for example. They didn't know about the general trend either. The reason why they refined their inner alchemy and talisman swords was to prepare for a future opportunity. This was a saying passed down from ancient books. As for what this opportunity was, they didn't know. Who knew how many of their ancestors had done this before them? I'll keep an eye on this. If I have any concrete information, I'll come back and tell you, Ma Bin said. Then I'll have to trouble you. By the way, the Three-World Island is buying fire elemental resources in large quantities. You need them for your cultivation, right? Ma Bin remembered something. Although he had been recuperating in seclusion in the Spirit Jade Mine, he still paid a lot of attention to the Three-World Island. It was not surprising that he knew about this. Others might not know why Lu Yi needed so many fire elemental resources, but he knew. When Zhao Nian was cultivating, he also needed a lot of fire elemental resources. This was obviously because of the Dao tree. Yes. Lu Yi nodded. If you need them in the future and the resources in the Wanxiang Sea can't satisfy you, go to the Hengyue Galaxy. You might find something there. Hengyue Galaxy. Lu Yi thought about it. He had never heard of this galaxy. There were no spiritual islands named after this galaxy on the Wanxiang Sea. This meant that this galaxy's foundation was not strong. That's the galaxy where the 9 states used to be. However, they changed their name after the 9 states disappeared. Ma Bin left. He didn't even use the insect path to return to the Wanxiang Sea. Instead, he flew directly into the depths of the universe. Lu Yi didn't know when he would see him again. However, what Ma Bin had mentioned earlier left him at a loss. According to the information obtained from the Blood Jade realm, the insect and blood races would reap huge benefits when the general trend descended. They might even have the chance to rule the starry sky. This was undoubtedly a disaster for all the other races. But in fact, Ma Bin even felt that his bottleneck was loosening a little. There was no doubt that this loosening would become more and more obvious as the general trend advanced. Perhaps one day Ma Bin's cultivation might have a breakthrough. Ma Bin was not the only supreme expert in this starry sky. In that case, the arrival of the general trend might not necessarily be a bad thing. For a cultivator like Ma Bin who had not made any progress in his cultivation after so many years, it was actually a great thing. Lu Yi returned to Mount Fangtsuan and found Qin Xianhai, asking about his situation. In Lu Ye's perception, Qin Xianhai and Ma Bin should be experts on the same level. How could Qin Xianhai not be able to sense Ma Bin's feelings? However, after some discussion, Lu Yi learned that Qin Xianhai and Ma Bin's situations were not the same. In terms of cultivation, the two were indeed on the same level. They had both reached the limit of the starry sky and were in a state where they could not advance any further. However, Ma Bin already had his own Dao foundation, while Qin Xianhai was still working hard on this step. Therefore, even if their cultivations were the same, Ma Bin would be much stronger in a real fight. Looking at the entire starry sky, there might not be many powerhouses who had cast their own Dao foundation. Lu Yi had once asked Ma Bin about his Dao foundation because Ma Bin's injuries were related to his Dao foundation and he needed to recuperate in the spirit jade mine. Therefore, he had a vague understanding of Dao foundations. However, it was only today that he understood how difficult it was for a cultivator to cast their own Dao foundation. After leaving Mount Fangtsuan again, Lu Yi returned to the Three-World Island half a day later. He immediately summoned Old Tang. A moment later, He Baichuan came to Lu Ye's palace and had a chat with him. Lu Yi was shocked. What? Old Tang is in seclusion? Why would he be in seclusion at such an old age? He Baichuan smiled. Island Lord, you may not know this, but Elder Tang suddenly had an epiphany a few months ago. He said that he might be about to break through, so he hurriedly went into seclusion and has not come out since. Lu Yi was dumbfounded. Old Tang is about to break through? Are you sure? Old Tang's potential had long been exhausted. When he came to the 10,000 Elephant Sea, he was already in the middle stage of the Moon Jade realm. Even now, he was still in the middle stage of the Moon Jade realm. He knew this himself, so he had never stopped working hard on his cultivation. He had always been helping Lu Yi manage the Three-World Island. However, today He Baichuan told him that Old Tang was in seclusion and had the possibility of breaking through. How could Lu Yi not be shocked? Once Old Tang went into seclusion, the affairs of the Three-World Island were left to He Baichuan. Now, the 9 states controlled the 4 top spiritual islands of the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Juyan oversaw the 10,000 Elephant Island, Su Yuqing oversaw the Fangtsuan Island, and Wan Xiaoa and Yin Miao oversaw the Winged Sky Island, which was now renamed the Mermaid Island. The mermaid clan that had disappeared for many years had once again reappeared in front of the world. The teleportation formation between the 4 spiritual islands had long been completed, and could be used at any time. With the 4 spiritual islands helping each other, and with a starry sky treasure like Small Melon as a deterrent, the 9 states' rule over the 10,000 Elephant Sea could be said to be unbreakable. Lu Yi was talking to He Baichuan when he suddenly looked outside. A familiar aura was rapidly approaching. After a while, Tang Jun's figure appeared. He sat down on the chair next to He Baichuan and sighed heavily. Lu Yi looked at him in confusion. Didn't you say that you were in seclusion? Why did you come out? Tang Jun sighed again. Can't you see that I have failed in my seclusion? Lu Yi looked at him suspiciously. Are you trying to slack off, or are you really going into seclusion? Tang Jun said angrily, What do you mean by slacking off? This old man has worked hard without complaint for so many years. I've given up so much for our Three-World Island. Look at how white my hair has become. Am I that kind of person in your eyes? You better apologize to me. Elder Tang, I am sorry. I have misunderstood you. Lu Yi apologized decisively. Tang Jun snorted. That's more like it. You really feel it? Lu Yi looked at him curiously. An old cultivator who had exhausted his potential actually had signs of a breakthrough. This was obviously not normal. Tang Jun nodded seriously. I do feel it, but it is not the time yet. Moreover, as time passes, this feeling is getting stronger. I am sure that if this situation continues for a few more years, I will definitely be able to break through my own shackles. He Baichuan said, actually, Elder Tang isn't the only one who feels this way. I've been paying attention to the situation outside. Not to mention our island, there are many cultivators like Elder Tang on the other spiritual islands who feel the same way. There's more. Tang Jun looked at Lu Yi. You have not been to the 10,000 Elephant Sea recently, so you might not know. Imperial Spring Island has become a top-grade spiritual island. Imperial Spring Island. Lu Yi thought for a moment and immediately remembered this spiritual island. This spiritual island was rather famous on the 10,000 Elephant Sea because it was a top-grade spiritual island with a good foundation. Elder Tang had told him previously that there were several cases of deserted islands turning into spiritual islands on the 10,000 Elephant Sea. It had happened before, but it was not so frequent. Now that a top-grade spiritual island like Imperial Spring Island had become a top-grade spiritual island, this was a huge matter on the 10,000 Elephant Sea. The unparalleled island of the past and the current three-world island could become a top-grade spiritual island from a deserted island. That was because of the minor constellation palace. It was not a spontaneous change. It was because of Imperial Spring Island's upgrade. There is news from Square Island. The spiritual energy on the island is getting denser. Perhaps it will become a top-grade spiritual island in a few years. There are many spiritual islands like this on the 10,000 Elephant Sea, and they are all changing for the better. Yi Baichuan said. Many thoughts flashed through Lu Ye's mind. These changes were undoubtedly related to the arrival of the general trend. Even the breakthrough opportunity that Elder Tang felt. From the looks of it, the arrival of the general trend was not entirely a bad thing. Although Elder Tang's seclusion had failed this time, no one could tell what the future would be like. Elder Tang's change was only a microcosm of the billions of cultivators. It was clear how big of an impact the arrival of the general trend would have on the entire galaxy. There is something I need you to do. Lu Yi looked at Elder Tang and He Baichuan, then told them about the insect clan's views on the arrival of the general trend. He emphasized the plans of the insect clan and the blood clan, and asked them to find a way to spread the news. Since the insect clan and the blood clan wanted to act in secret, they could not be allowed to get what they wanted no matter what. News spread quickly on the 10,000 Elephant Sea. It would not be long before the entire galaxy knew about the conspiracy of the two clans. By then, no matter what the insect clan and the blood clan were planning, there would be countless pairs of eyes watching them. After hearing this, the two of them looked solemn. They hurriedly looked for their own contacts to spread the news. A day later, Lu Ye's talent tree clone sat cross-legged in the palace. He held a fire gourd in his hand, and a large number of storage rings piled up beside him. These were the fire-type resources that the three-world island had purchased recently. The price of fire-type resources on the 10,000 Elephant Sea was rising steadily. It could be said that Lu Yi had single-handedly changed the market. Because the talent tree clone also had a part of the talent tree, it could also devour the special flames nurtured by the fire gourd to increase the speed of its transformation. When the time came, he only needed to retrieve the clone. Meanwhile, Lu Ye's main body had already entered the depths of the 10,000 Elephant Sea to cultivate in peace. Even though his cultivation efficiency was terrifying, it was not something that could be achieved in a short period of time. Naturally, he had to seize every opportunity he could. Nurturing the special flames required fire-type resources, and Lu Yi also needed a large amount of fire-type resources for his cultivation. Although the three-world island could supply them for a short period of time, it would be difficult to continue for a long time. Sent the wrong message. It has been modified. Just refresh it. End of chapter. Chapter 2062. Lu Yi had spent almost a year cultivating this time. A year later, his main body returned from the sea. He could not continue cultivating. His consumption of fire elemental resources was too terrifying. Since half a year ago, even though the three-world island had done their best, the fire elemental resources they purchased were not enough to make ends meet. This caused his cultivation to be intermittent. There was still some fuel left in the talent tree, but it was not good to continue using it. He had to have some backup just in case. Lu Ye's cultivation had indeed improved a lot in this year's cultivation, but it was far from breaking through to the mid-stage. After the accumulation required for a breakthrough was obviously much greater than before. Under observation, although the talent tree had some changes, it was still not to the extent of metamorphosis. Lu Yi could not even determine how many rare fires it needed to devour. He only knew that the fourth metamorphosis of the talent tree was a bottomless pit. This did not discourage him. Instead, he was somewhat excited because the talent tree needed so much this time. This meant that once it completed its metamorphosis, there would definitely be a huge change. Back then, Zhao Nian of the 9 states had not reached his level. In terms of growth alone, he had undoubtedly surpassed the previous Dao Tree successor. In a mere year, the Wanxiangxi had not changed much. After the insect and blood races conspiracy was exposed, the conflicts between the various factions had decreased a lot. Now, many powerful factions and powerful cultivators were investigating the insect and blood race. At the same time, they were trying to find out the secret behind the Great Trend's descent. Unfortunately, no one had made any substantial gains so far. Lu Yi did not stay on the three-world island for long. After a few days, he instructed Old Tang and the others to continue purchasing fire elemental resources. Then he disguised himself and left the three-world island. He was going to the Hengyue Galaxy, which was the former 9 States Galaxy. Ma Bin had said something to him before he left, so he wanted to know what was in the Hengyue Galaxy that could satisfy his need for fire elemental resources. Before he left, Lu Yi brought along a large number of spiritual jades, spiritual crystals, and spirit refining pills to ensure that he could use these resources to cultivate even if he was outside. The former 9 States Galaxy was directly connected to the Wanxiang Galaxy by a bug path. Lu Yi had once chatted with Ma Bin and asked him curiously why he wanted to kill Wanxiang's Ri. Did the Wanxiang Galaxy have a deep grudge with the former 9 States? Ma Bin's answer was that many factions had joined forces to besiege the 9 States Galaxy. The reason they could successfully gather was because of the Wanxiang Galaxy. Those factions came from all parts of the universe. Wanxiang Galaxy was involved in the operation against the former 9 States Galaxy. The past was like smoke. The cultivators back then were basically all dead. Only some of the long-lived races, such as the experts of the Yao clan, were still alive. After so many years, Ma Bin's revenge was almost done. So, he did not reveal to Lu Yi which forces had participated in the siege of the 9 provinces. Clearly, he did not want to continue this hatred. The matters of the 9 prefectures could be considered settled here. All in all, it was very convenient for Vientiane to travel to and from the galaxy where the 9 states were located. Lu Yi checked the condition of the insect path and confirmed that it was still stable, so he continued to move forward. The exit of the tunnel was behind him. Lu Yi looked around and frowned. Although he knew that this galaxy had declined, he didn't expect it to decline to such an extent. The stars that could be seen in other parts of the starry sky couldn't be seen at all here. The entire starry sky was shrouded in darkness, and even the starry sky's spiritual energy wasn't rich. In such an environment, the production of spirit jades was much lower than normal places, not to mention the birth of a large realm. Lu Yi immediately made a judgment in his heart. Such a place was basically better than some desolate star systems that had nothing at all. Just as Lu Yi was thinking about which direction to go, there was a sudden movement behind him. Lu Yi turned around and saw ripples at the exit of the tunnel. Vaguely, a figure was gradually appearing. Someone was coming. Sure enough, after only 3 breaths, 2 figures suddenly rushed out of the insect path. It was a man and a woman. Because they had just passed through the tunnel, the energy fluctuations on their bodies were very obvious. The man was at the early stage of Yu Yao, while the woman was at the late stage of Constellation. However, the 2 of them were holding hands intimately. They should be Dao companions or siblings. The auras on their bodies were scorching hot. Obviously, they were of the fire element. They obviously didn't expect there to be someone at the exit of the tunnel. When they saw Lu Yi, they were shocked. Their eyes were full of vigilance, and they secretly circulated their energy. Lu Yi had no interest in them. Moreover, he had already disguised himself, so the man and woman didn't recognize him as the Lord of the Wanxiangxi. In addition, Lu Yi didn't move and his aura was restrained. They couldn't see through him at all. As if sensing that Lu Yi had no ill intentions, the man nodded slightly at Lu Yi. He pulled the woman, turned around and rushed to the side. Soon they disappeared. Lu Yi ignored them. He looked up at the starry sky. Where should I go? Ma Bin only told him to come to the Hangyu Galaxy but didn't tell him what was here. However, if there was something in this galaxy that was useful to him, it shouldn't be difficult for him to find it with his sunshine cultivation. I'll take a look around. This is the galaxy where the 9 states are located. To be able to nurture a top realm like the 9 states, there should be something special about this galaxy. He randomly picked a direction and flew away. Along the way he didn't find anything. It wasn't until half a day later that he suddenly turned his head and looked in a direction. There were fluctuations of magic power coming from that direction, as if someone was fighting. As time passed, the distance between them was getting closer and closer. It wasn't a fight, it was being hunted. Lu Yi focused his gaze over and chuckled. Because he saw that the people being pursued were actually the man and woman he'd seen at the exit of the insect path. At this moment, both of them were in a sorry state. The man's cultivation was slightly higher, so he was constantly executing techniques behind him with the intention of stopping the enemy, but it was of little effect. It wasn't a cultivator chasing after them, but a star beast. It was an oval-shaped star beast that was more than 100 feet long. Its body was snow-white like a giant silkworm cocoon. There were ferocious mouths at both ends of its head and tail, with circles of spiral serrated fangs densely packed. The two fleeing people were obviously no match for such a star beast. Lu Yi had never seen such a star beast before. This had nothing to do with experience. It was just that there were too many star beasts in the starry sky. Even the most knowledgeable cultivator wouldn't dare say that they knew all of them. The two fleeing people didn't notice Lu Yi at first, but as they got closer they finally noticed Lu Ye's aura. The man in the lead was stunned at first, but then he cried out in joy, "Dao brother is merciful, please save us. My wife and I are willing to offer a 5-star artifact as a thank you gift." He didn't know what Lu Ye's cultivation was, but he could feel that Lu Yi was stronger than him from their brief contact before. Moreover, since Lu Yi dared to stand still, it meant that he had great confidence in his own strength. Now that they were in such a situation, asking Lu Yi for help was undoubtedly the best choice. In order to make Lu Yi agree, he even offered a thank you gift. There was no doubt that he had considered this carefully. They had met by chance in the starry sky and they were still being hunted, so if he silently approached Lu Yi, it would undoubtedly be a disaster. If Lu Yi didn't have a good temper, they might be killed by Lu Yi before the star beast showed its might. Of course, paying a 5-star artifact was painful, but what was it compared to saving their lives? After shouting, he carefully checked Lu Ye's movements. He didn't hear a reply, but Lu Yi still stood there, his attitude unclear. There was no way to judge whether Lu Yi was willing to help or not. However, the current situation didn't allow him to think too much. The man gritted his teeth and said, "Fight." He led the woman and quickly approached Lu Yi. It wasn't until the two of them passed by Lu Ye's side that the man was completely relieved. Then he vaguely sensed a wave of transcendence energy behind him. When he looked back, his expression froze. This was because the originally overbearing star beast had been sliced in half from the middle. The two halves of the corpse were neatly cut, and they flew past the unknown powerhouse without a single drop of blood on his body. Rizhao. The man's heart trembled, and he immediately determined Lu Ye's cultivation. The wave of transcendence energy just now couldn't be faked. Moreover, this star beast was at the late Yuyao late stage. Only Rizhao could kill it so easily. After calming himself down, the man brought the woman to stand in front of Lu Yi. He respectfully cupped his fists and said, "Thank you for saving my life, Senior." Lu Yi tilted his head and looked at them, feeling strange. Senior? He was certain that he was definitely younger than the couple. However, this was how the cultivation world worked. Strength was everything, especially in a place like this where there were few people. If the other party did not show sufficient etiquette, they would be casually killed and no one would know. Lu Yi calmed himself down and nodded slightly. He acted like an expert and the couple felt even more reverence. Oh, Rizhao, that was high and mighty, a height that they could never reach. As promised, the man quickly took out a 5-star artifact and respectfully handed it over to Lu Yi as a way to repay him for saving his life. Lu Yi casually took it. A 5-star artifact wasn't worth much to him, but it could be used to nourish sword chi for the sword gourd. This was something he deserved. The woman even took the initiative to search for the star beast's corpse, took the crystal core from the corpse, and handed it to Lu Yi. Her intention to please him was obvious. "Senior, are you also heading to the giant red star?" the man asked. Although Lu Yi appeared calm, since he was willing to help just now, he wasn't a cold-hearted person. This kind of powerhouse wasn't difficult to get along with, which was why the man dared to ask. When the last chapter was published, the children came to make a fuss, so there was a mistake. Brothers who subscribe to it can just update it. End of chapter. Chapter 2063. Giant Red Star? Lu Yi turned to look at him, somewhat puzzled. "Senior, you don't know?" The man was surprised. "I saw that you were also using the fire element just now, so I thought you were going to the giant red star to cultivate." Lu Ye's expression changed. So the giant red star is beneficial to the cultivation of the fire element? The man smiled. That's exactly why we came here. There are many other cultivators of the fire element there as well. Lu Yi blinked. Then I'll have to go take a look. He was now certain that Ma Bin had asked him to come to the Eternal Eclipse Galaxy for this giant red star. Since it was beneficial to the cultivation of the fire element and also attracted a large number of cultivators of the fire element, it was definitely a place with abundant fire element energy. Only such a place could attract cultivators. Hearing this, the man said, "Senior, if you don't mind, we're willing to lead the way for you. To tell you the truth, we've been here once before." He wasn't trying to curry favor with Lu Yi. The main reason was that with Lu Yi, their journey would be much safer. Even if they encountered the star beast from before, they wouldn't have to worry about anything. "Then let's go." Lu Yi nodded. Then he tossed out his planetary boat and took the lead to board it. The couple followed closely behind. The man gave Lu Yi directions and Lu Yi flew the planetary boat. Along the way he casually chatted with the couple and learned that one of them was called Fei Zhuang, and the other was called Hong Yan. The two of them didn't come from the same galaxy, but had met on the Wanxiang Sea and developed feelings for each other over the years. This kind of thing was actually rare. Although cultivators didn't care much about sects, if two people came from different galaxies, it would be very difficult for them to be together. Fei Zhuang asked Lu Ye's name, and Lu Yi casually said Li Tai Bai. Along the way, Fei Zhuang and his wife became bolder, probably because they saw Lu Ye's gentle nature. They asked Lu Yi some questions about their cultivation, and Lu Yi answered them one by one, making the couple shed tears of gratitude. 2 days later, Lu Yi looked ahead and saw a red dot in the dark starry sky. As he got closer, the red dot grew bigger and brighter like a huge fireball burning in the starry sky. This was the giant red star. In essence, it was a sun that was on its way to destruction. Everything in the starry sky had its own destiny. Even if the sun was so dazzling and seemed to be an existence that could last forever, there would still be a time when it perished. Such a scene was not common even in the entire starry sky. Lu Yi finally understood the purpose of Ma Bin's guidance. To him, this huge red star was what he needed the most right now. Among the fire elemental resources he had purchased at the 10,000 Creations Ocean, there was a kind called the Flaming Sun Essence. The Flaming Sun Essence was refined from the essence of the Grand Sun by cultivators using some special methods. This was not something that just any cultivator could do. Not only was it time-consuming, but it also required the help of some special techniques and magic treasures. Even so, there were still some cultivators who made a living doing this to earn cultivation resources. And the best place to refine the Flaming Sun Essence was the giant red star. The Great Sun Essence at its peak was not so easy to collect. "Senior Tai Bai, we need to take a detour up ahead." Lu Yi was looking at the gradually approaching giant red star when Fei Zhuang's voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Lu Yi came back to his senses. While steering the star boat to the side, he asked casually, "What's up ahead?" Fei Zhuang said, "The starry sky up ahead is damaged and the space is extremely fragile. If you barge in recklessly, you may cause some unnecessary accidents." Damaged starry sky? Lu Yi frowned and looked in that direction. Sure enough, he noticed something unusual. This kind of anomaly could not be detected if one did not deliberately investigate it. And the location of this anomaly covered a large area. "Why is that?" Lu Yi asked. Fei Zhuang shook his head. "I don't know. I heard it from someone before, so I remembered it." Lu Yi nodded. Suddenly, his heart jolted as he vaguely realized something. The location of the damaged starry sky was very likely the place where the former 9 prefectures were located. In the great battle back then, the former 9 prefectures were about to be destroyed, but they were teleported away by the Heavenly Fate Plate and disappeared without a trace. It seemed that the Heavenly Fate Plate had not only teleported the former 9 prefectures, but the entire starry sky. That was why the starry sky here was damaged. Even if 10,000 years had passed, the space here was still extremely fragile. Looking at the giant red star in the distance, an even bolder guess appeared in Lu Ye's mind. For the Plate of Heavenly Secrets to move the 9 provinces, it might not only have consumed the resources of the 9 provinces, but also the power of the sun. Otherwise, it would not have been possible for a supreme treasure like the Plate of Heavenly Secrets to move such a vast region to such a far place. The Great Sun's power must have been greatly consumed because of this, and that was why it was heading toward destruction after 10,000 years. Ma Bin must have come to investigate and knew that he needed a lot of fire-type resources, so he had specially given him some advice. So it seemed that the 9 prefectures were able to survive because of the Great Sun. If it were not for this great sun, the 9 prefectures would have been destroyed during the teleportation. It would have been impossible for them to survive. The star boat went around the damaged starry sky and continued to approach the giant red star. Gradually, Lu Yi felt that the aura around him became scorching hot, as if a hot wind was blowing in his face from the direction of the giant red star. Not only was the wind hot, but it also seemed to contain the spiritual energy of the starry sky. Compared to ordinary spiritual energy of the starry sky, the spiritual energy here seemed to be more violent and destructive. Solar wind. Lu Yi slightly activated the power of his talent tree, and found that it could indeed devour the heat and turn it into fuel. However, the efficiency was very low. This was undoubtedly because they were still far away from the giant red star. If they were close enough, the efficiency would be much higher. In fact, if they could go deeper into the giant red star. The star boat continued to move forward. Lu Yi remained unmoved. Fei Zhuang and Hong Yan, on the other hand, began activating their cultivation techniques. As they cultivated, they also resisted the erosion of the solar wind. Half a day later, Fei Zhuang suddenly said, "Senior, this is as far as we can go." He hadn't reached his limit yet, but Hong Yan, whose cultivation base was slightly weaker, had. If they went any further, she wouldn't be able to withstand it. Lu Yi nodded and said, "Go ahead. Thank you for protecting us all the way, Senior. I wish you a fruitful trip." After saying these auspicious words, Fei Zhuang jumped off the star boat with Hong Yan, found a place nearby and started to cultivate. Lu Yi went deeper into the giant red star. Just as Fei Zhuang said, there were many fire elemental cultivators who came here to cultivate with the help of the special environment. Fei Zhuang and his wife were at the outermost area, where the constellations stayed. The deeper they went, the stronger the cultivators Lu Yi could sense. Naturally, when he passed by, the cultivators nearby would be on guard. However, when they saw that he didn't make any unnecessary movements, they slowly relaxed. After passing through the area where Yu Yao was, Lu Yi finally encountered the first Rizhao. His cultivation base was the same as his, at the early stage of the Rizhao. When their divine senses touched, Lu Yi could sense the other party's warning. It was probably saying that this area was his cultivation area, and that Lu Yi should find another place to cultivate. Lu Yi ignored it and continued to go deeper. Soon he was out of Rizhao's range of perception. At this point, the giant red star had become incomparably huge. That was because they were close enough. At this location, even fire elemental Rizhao cultivators would find it difficult to withstand for a long time. The terrifyingly high temperature was secondary, which Rizhao cultivators could withstand. The key was the terrifying spiritual energy contained in the solar wind that constantly blew. Rizhao cultivators had to find a balance between resisting and refining it. This balance point was their limit. However, Lu Yi was still going deeper. The power of the talent tree covered his entire body. The difficulties that ordinary cultivators faced were nothing to him. After a while, Lu Yi could already see the fire elemental energy rolling on the surface of the giant red star. It was like boiling lava, flowing endlessly on the surface of the giant red star. Occasionally, lava pillars would erupt from the surface of the giant red star. They were extremely terrifying. The talent tree greedily devoured the fire elemental energy in the surroundings, and its fuel reserves increased rapidly. Lu Yi suddenly realized something interesting. He didn't need spiritual jades or crystals to cultivate in this place. While the giant red star was emitting terrifying heat, it was also constantly releasing spiritual energy. This meant that Lu Yi only needed to activate the power of the talent tree. Not only could he store fuel, but he could also cultivate at the same time. It was just that the efficiency was much lower than in the Wanxiang Sea. However, it was still much faster than relying on spiritual jades to cultivate. This place. I've come to the right place. Lu Yi was overjoyed. He finally landed on the giant red star. If he continued forward, he would be in the giant red star's interior. Almost as soon as he came to a stop, a divine sense probed him from afar and an unfamiliar voice sounded in Lu Ye's ears. "Oh? Another new fellow cultivator. How rare." Lu Yi was slightly startled. He followed the direction of the telepathic thought and sensed that the owner of the voice was very far away from him. However, the other party was still able to sense his arrival in this chaotic environment. It was clear that the other party had a strong foundation. According to Lu Ye's observations along the way, to be able to stand on the giant red star, he was definitely in the late sunshine stage. Without this level of cultivation, it was impossible to do such a thing. The voice sounded a little old, but there was no malice. Lu Ye's telepathic thought surged. "Anli Tai Bai. How should I address you? The voice chuckled. If you can still stay here after a while, it won't be too late to ask me. There's no point in talking about it now. This was obviously to see if Lu Yi had the right to stay here. The other party seemed to be a proud person. If Lu Yi left immediately after entering, he obviously didn't have the right to know his name. Lu Yi didn't care. He was here to cultivate, not to make friends. End of chapter. Chapter 2064. Lu Yi settled down on the giant red star. The talent tree's power was activated. While the internal fuel reserves were constantly increasing, the psionic energy was also being refined and turned into his own magical power to strengthen his foundation. After his observation, this giant red star was different from ordinary stars. The entire surface of the giant red star was flowing with magma. The deeper he went, the more terrifying the temperature became. Lu Yi took out the fire gourd. This trip was mainly for the talent tree's transformation. In order for the talent tree to transform, it had to rely on the special fire nurtured by the fire gourd. Holding the fire gourd and activating his magical power, the gourd's mouth suddenly emitted a suction force, absorbing the surrounding heat energy. However, Lu Yi soon frowned because he found that the fire gourd's absorption efficiency was not very high. This made him somewhat puzzled. Logically speaking, with such an abundant fire energy gathering place, the fire gourd's absorption efficiency should not be too low. However, in reality, if the special fire was being nurtured at this speed, it would not be as effective as the fire gourd's absorption of various fire elemental resources. After pondering for a while, Lu Yi vaguely understood the problem. In the past, the fire gourd's absorption of fire elemental resources was directly digesting the food into its stomach. Now the fire gourd was only smelling the food. Naturally, the efficiency could not be compared to before. Since that was the case, Lu Yi activated his magical power again, trying to make the fire gourd swallow the flowing magma-like substance into the gourd. However, what puzzled him was that no matter how hard he tried, he could not do it. He activated his magical power again, enveloping a lump of magma and trying to send it into the gourd. However, the fire gourd emitted a repulsive force and he could not send it in at all. This was strange. Lu Yi observed with rapt attention. After a long while, he finally found some clues. Although the magma flowing on the giant red star was filled with terrifying heat energy, it could also be considered a fire elemental resource. However, it did not only contain heat energy but also other things. The fire gourd could only absorb a part of it. Most of it could not be accepted, which was why it rejected it. The fire elemental resources he used to let the fire gourd devour were different. Most of the fire elemental resources could be accepted by the fire gourd. Realizing this, Lu Yi realized that he had underestimated the situation. However, it did not matter. Although the fire gourd's efficiency of nurturing the special fire would not meet expectations, it would just take more time. With this thought in mind, he calmly waited. A few days later, Lu Yi suddenly opened his eyes and unsheathed the Pan Mountain saber at his waist. Divine wind spirit marks flickered on the blade. A huge force came from below, causing him to tremble slightly. Lu Yi was surprised. Although he was only at the early Sunshine Realm, his foundation was extremely solid. His physical strength alone was superior to that of demons of the same level. He didn't know what was attacking him. Not only was it extremely stealthy, it was also extremely powerful. Carrying doubts, he stretched out his hand and grabbed downwards, rummaging through the scorching lava for a while before quickly lifting up a strange-looking object. This thing was fiery red like a monkey without a tail or hair. Its two eyes took up half of its face, and there were a few fangs at the corner of its mouth. Star Beast. There were actually star beasts in this place. There was a puncture wound on the beast's head. It was obviously caused by the Pan Mountain saber. This was also a fatal wound. Judging from the remnant aura on its body, this star beast was at Yu Yao's level. However, on second thought, if star beasts lived in a place like the Wanxiang Sea, it was not strange for there to be star beasts on this giant red star. And star beasts living in such a place. Lu Yi scanned the area with his divine sense and quickly found its location. He took out a crystal core from the star beast's body. As expected, a star beast that could live in such a place must have a fire elemental crystal core. Such a crystal core would be worth at least 10 or 20,000 spirit jades in the Wanxiang Sea. Lu Yi casually stuffed it into the fire gourd. This time the fire gourd did not reject it. It swallowed it just like how it had swallowed fire elemental resources in the past. Obviously, the special fire inside the fire gourd had grown a little stronger. Compared to before, it was much more efficient. After this small incident, Lu Yi continued with his business. However, what surprised him was that in the next half a month, star beasts like the one from before would attack him from time to time. It seemed that there were many star beasts living on this giant red star, and they were all from the same clan. These star beasts had the geographical advantage and launched sneak attacks from below. If Lu Ye's divine sense was not strong enough now, he might have been hit. The star beasts that attacked sometimes came alone, sometimes in groups of 3 to 5. Their strengths were also different. There were Yu Yaos and Xingxios. However, without exception, no matter how many of them came, they all became nutrients for the fire gourd's special fire. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. Since Lu Yi came here, the first special fire was successfully nurtured. Lu Yi sighed with emotion. There was no way to compare the efficiency with before. In the past, it only took a few days to nurture the special fire. Now it took so long. This was also thanks to the star beasts that contributed their crystal cores. If the fire gourd had to rely on its own devouring, it would take at least a month to nurture the special fire. However, on second thought, he had spent money in the past. Now he was doing a business without any capital. Naturally, there was no comparison. He activated the power of the talent tree. His roots reached into the mouth of the fire gourd and swallowed the special fire. He observed the talent tree. As expected, it did not show any signs of transforming. It was obvious that the conditions for the talent tree to transform had not been met. There was still a long way to go. On this day, Lu Yi was sitting quietly. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and looked down with narrowed eyes. The star beast had come to ambush him again. Although the other party was very secretive, he still noticed some clues. Recently, life had been very boring. Fighting with the star beast here was one of the few pleasures he had. Moreover, the star beast's crystal cores could increase the speed of nurturing the special fire. Lu Yi naturally wanted as many star beasts as possible. He raised his hand and placed it on the mountain blade. He only needed to wait for the right opportunity to deal a fatal blow. However, in the next moment, Lu Yi suddenly felt that the star beast this time seemed a little different from before. As soon as this thought appeared in his mind, the star beast under the lava suddenly accelerated. At the same time, Lu Yi unsheathed his mountain blade and ruthlessly stabbed down. A powerful force attacked and Lu Yi flew into the air. A figure flashed under the lava. Lu Yi rapidly fell down. The long blade in his hand slashed out a series of afterimages. However, the star beast had already disappeared. Under the surging magic power, only the lava was stirred up. Standing in the same place, Lu Yi was surprised. He didn't expect there to be a sunshine-level star beast here. Moreover, the moment of contact just now proved that the star beast wasn't an ordinary one. It was at least equivalent to the middle sunshine level. Lu Yi didn't care much if it was only at the middle sunshine level. However, the environment here was obviously very conducive to the star beast's performance. Such a middle sunshine level star beast definitely had the deterrence of a late sunshine level star beast. It was a pity that he couldn't kill it. If the core of such a powerful star beast was devoured by the fire gourd, it would definitely be able to nurture the second special fire faster. Lu Yi didn't pay much attention to the sunshine star beast. Who would have thought that it would be so persistent? After the first failed ambush, the star beast didn't show any fear. Instead, it seemed to be angered by Lu Yi. Every few days it would ambush him. More importantly, the star beast was extremely secretive every time it moved. Moreover, it had the style of a ghost cultivator. After missing its attack, it would immediately run away. This annoyed Lu Yi immensely. He came here for the transformation of his talent tree. How could he have the time to fight a battle of wits and courage with such a star beast? Once Lu Yi was enraged. He chased the star beast into the interior of the giant red star. In the end, he returned disappointed. He couldn't find any trace of the star beast at all. The interior of the giant red star was extremely harsh. Even if Lu Yi went deep inside, his divine telekinesis couldn't spread too far. He couldn't grasp the star beast's whereabouts at all. Helpless, he could only change his position. Lu Yi thought that this would settle the matter peacefully. However, the sunshine star beast obviously didn't think so. Even if Lu Yi changed his position, it still accurately found him and constantly harassed him. It seemed that Lu Yi had killed too many star beasts before, which made it hold a grudge against him. A few days later, Lu Yi sat cross-legged on the giant red star. Below him, the sunshine star beast slowly approached him. Its aura was restrained to the extreme. Even Lu Yi didn't notice it at all. Although star beasts didn't have much spiritual intelligence, sometimes their superior instincts were more difficult to deal with than their spiritual intelligence. After fighting with Lu Yi many times, it had a rough idea of Lu Ye's background. It knew the best way to approach Lu Yi secretly and when to attack. The distance kept closing, but the star beast didn't reveal any of its aura. It only attacked when it reached an extreme position. In the past, every time it attacked at this time, Lu Yi would react and it would escape. However, this time Lu Yi didn't move at all. It was as if he didn't notice it. The star beast's simple spiritual intelligence couldn't understand why, but it didn't think too much about it. Its instincts told it that this was an opportunity. A large, hairless hand reached out of the magma, aiming straight for Lu Ye's heart. The 5 fingers on the hand shone with a cold light, sharper than most Dharma treasures in the world. It pierced through Lu Ye's protective Dharma power in one strike. Perhaps Lu Ye's life would be taken in the next moment. However, at this moment Lu Ye's Dharma power surged wildly. He suddenly opened his eyes. With a thought, layers of defensive spirit tattoos formed, protecting his vital points. At the same time he reached out and grabbed the star beast's arm. With the other hand he unsheathed his saber and slashed down. The star beast's vigilance was too high. He could only use this method to make it lower its guard. Fortunately, the star beast's spiritual intelligence wasn't high. That was why he had a chance to succeed. The problem of spiritual intelligence was also the weakness of most star beasts. This was the only thing he could use. End of chapter. Chapter 2065. Lu Yi only felt a slight pain in his chest. Shockingly, several defensive spirit inscriptions had been shattered. The next moment, a terrifying power came from his hand, making him lose his grip on the star beast's arm. It struggled free. At the same time the saber slashed down. A strange squeak came from under the magma, and the fierce aura quickly disappeared. Lu Yi steadied himself and hurriedly looked at his chest. He saw blood seeping out of his clothes. Clearly he had been injured in the sneak attack just now. However, he could feel that it was only a flesh wound. The defensive spirit rune had blocked that fatal attack for him. He looked at the Pan Mountain saber again. There was a trace of blood on the blade. With a cold harumph, he plunged into the lava without any hesitation. Let's see where you can run to this time. He swore in his heart. No matter what, he had to get rid of all future troubles. Otherwise, how could he cultivate the special fire and peace if he was always on this guy's mind? The 2 figures, one in front and one behind, went deep into the giant red star. Neither of them was slow. The solar star beast was not panicking. Lu Yi had chased it once before, but it had shaken him off in a few moves. It thought it would be the same this time. However, it did not expect that no matter how hard it tried this time, the danger behind it was like a maggot in its bones. Could not shake it off. This chase lasted for several days. Both man and beast had long traveled deep into the giant red star. The surrounding temperature was frighteningly high, far higher than the surface of the giant red star. Even a peak sunshine expert would have melted in an instant at this temperature. The star beast's ability to withstand the heat was due to its innate talent. This kind of special star beast was born to chase after heat. Even a constellation could survive in the giant red star, let alone a sunshine star beast. Its ability to withstand the terrifying heat was not something other races could compare to. Lu Yi could withstand it because of the talent tree's protection. Invisible roots covered his entire body so he could not feel the heat at all. At a certain moment, Lu Yi suddenly felt a sense of fullness. This was a feeling he had never felt before. He could not help but be startled. After careful inspection, he realized that the talent tree's fuel reserves had reached their limit. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. Ever since the talent tree had transformed 3 times, its fuel reserves had never reached the limit. Unexpectedly, there was an unexpected gain this time. This special environment was too suitable for the increase of the talent tree's fuel reserves. However, he was here to kill the solar star beast to prevent future trouble. For the time being, it was a pleasant surprise. After several days of waiting, it should be about time. At this moment, the aura of the fleeing star beast was clearly much weaker than before. This was not because it was being chased, but because the wound on its body was continuously worsening. This kind of astral beast had a strong physique. Normal injuries were nothing to it. The interior of the giant red star was the best place for it to heal. However, the injuries caused by the mountain blade were different. With the power of brightness entangling, not only were the wounds unable to heal, they were constantly being torn apart. This greatly depleted the astral beast's energy and stamina. Lu Yi was also relying on the guidance of Fang's power to chase after him. Otherwise he would have lost track of him long ago. Raising his hand, he pointed the coiling mountain saber to the front and shook slightly. An invisible wave rippled out, causing the fleeing solar star beast to stagger. Its wound suddenly tore open, causing blood to spurt out. Rapid squeaking sounds came from its mouth. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lu Yi quickly rushed over. After a few leaps, he was not far from the astral beast. The astral beast clearly sensed that something was wrong. Knowing that it had no hope of escaping, it immediately turned around and pounced at Lu Yi with a ferocious expression. It looked like it wanted to drag Lu Yi down with it even if it died. Lu Yi's expression was calm. After fighting with the astral beast for so long, he had a clear understanding of it. It had a strong physique and great strength. Using the special environment of the giant red star, it moved very stealthily. However, it was no match for him in a direct confrontation. If they were not here, he could use his spirit to suppress it. This was because the biggest weakness of astral beasts was that their spirit was not strong. Except for a few special ones, most astral beasts had this weakness. However, the environment here was not good. The temperature was too high. If Lu Yi's divine will left his body, he would have to endure the pain of being burned. The blade light fell and a huge lotus flower suddenly bloomed. Countless petals danced in the air, cutting in all directions. The squeaking sounds became even more hurried. Just the use of the lotus sun had caused the astral beast to suffer even more injuries. It was dizzy for a moment. Lu Yi struck again, and the faint roar of a beast could be heard. A ferocious beast head suddenly appeared, baring its fangs and biting at the astral beast. The surrounding magma instantly retreated. After advancing to Solar Star Beast, Lu Yi's every move contained terrifying power. Compared to Yu Yao, his strength was on a completely different level. The Solar Star Beast was sent flying. A large part of its chest had caved in, and it looked extremely miserable. Lu Yi leaped forward, the Panshan saber stabbing forward. He was determined to kill it. Faced with this attack, the heavily injured astral beast no longer had the strength to resist. However, Lu Yi's saber did not manage to pierce through. The saber stopped an inch away from the astral beast's head. Under the illumination of the surrounding fiery red light, Lu Yi could clearly see the fear in the astral beast's eyes. Its body was covered in blood, but it opened its mouth and spat out a red ray of light as thick as a finger. Lu Yi sensed it and was surprised to find that this red ray of light contained extremely pure fire-type energy. It looked like the flaming sun essence he had purchased on the 10,000 Creations Sea, but its quality was clearly much higher and purer. Fire-type resources like flaming sun essence were refined by cultivators in an environment like the giant red star through special methods. They would then sell it in exchange for the cultivation resources they needed. Lu Yi did not expect the astral beast in front of him to have such an ability. Moreover, it seemed to be an innate ability. Taking a closer look, the astral beast's eyes were not only filled with fear, but also begging for mercy. It was clearly afraid. It knew that it was no match for Lu Yi, but it could not shake him off, so it used this method to beg for mercy. As for why it spat out the flaming sun essence, it was not difficult to understand. Cultivators who came to the giant red star would basically refine the flaming sun essence through their own methods. They would either bring it back to sell or refine and absorb it themselves. Only Lu Yi, whether it was storing fuel for his talent tree or nurturing strange flames in his fire gourd, did not require this process. This astral beast must have seen other cultivators refine this thing, so it spat it out. Looking at it this way, this astral beast had a certain level of intelligence. It knew when to give in and knew what to take out to tempt Lu Yi. It had undoubtedly succeeded. If it had been a little slower, Lu Yi would have taken its crystal core. Lu Yi raised his hand and sucked the flaming sun essence over. He then took out his fire gourd and swallowed the flaming sun essence with a shake of the gourd. The strange flames inside grew. Is there more? Lu Yi's divine sense surged as he asked through voice transmission. The astral beast did not respond. It clearly did not understand. Lu Yi held the fire gourd and gestured a few times. Only then did the astral beast react. It opened its mouth with difficulty and spat out another flaming sun essence. Lu Yi's eyes lit up. There really is more. He swallowed the fire gourd and looked at the other party. The astral beast scratched its ears and cheeks anxiously. Lu Yi's face darkened. He gestured with the mountain pan saber, clearly threatening it. The astral beast's face was filled with fear. It opened its mouth reluctantly and spat out the flaming sun essence for the third time. But after this time, Lu Yi clearly found that the astral beast's spirit had become extremely sluggish. The quality of the flaming sun essence it spat out was also inferior to the previous 2 times. Could it be that this was its limit? Lu Yi still wanted to confirm. After using the fire gourd to absorb the flaming sun essence, He placed the mountain pan saber on the astral beast's neck. The astral beast's expression was one of despair. Seeing this, Lu Yi could roughly confirm that this was indeed its limit. If that was the case, this astral beast would be of great use. It could refine something like the flaming sun essence. It could undoubtedly increase the speed of the strange flame's growth. If he simply killed it, although the effects of a sunshine-grade crystal core were not bad, it was no different from killing the chicken to get the eggs. On the other hand, if he left it alive, it could be used for a long time. However, the astral beast's intelligence was not very high. It was difficult to communicate with it. Moreover, he didn't know how effective it was at refining the flaming sun essence. This needed to be verified. Just as Lu Yi was thinking about how to communicate with it, the star beast suddenly thought of something and hurriedly urged Lu Yi to squeak. Then it looked at the long saber on its neck in awe. Lu Yi understood. He put away the saber and didn't forget to threaten it. Don't think about escaping. If you dare to escape, you'll die. The astral beast had no idea what he was talking about. Its figure flashed and rushed in a certain direction. Its speed wasn't fast, mainly because it was too weak right now. Lu Yi was really afraid that it would die just like that. He immediately activated the mountain pan saber and dissolved most of the Fang power on its body. The man and beast returned the way they came. After reducing the torment of the Fang power, the astral beast's spirit seemed to slowly improve. It sped away, letting out strange sounds from its mouth. Lu Yi also didn't know what it was doing. After a long time, another astral beast approached. Only then did Lu Yi realize that this astral beast was summoning its companions. It was a moon astral beast. It quickly met up with the moon astral beast. When it saw Lu Yi, the moon astral beast was clearly shocked. It bared its fangs at Lu Yi. The sun astral beast, however, smashed its fist into the moon astral beast's head. The moon astral beast was stunned and it finally calmed down. Then the two astral beasts gathered together and used some unknown method to communicate. The moon astral beast then opened its mouth and spat out a stream of flaming sun essence. Lu Yi's eyes lit up. He couldn't help but smile. Good, good, good. Very good. He never thought that the sun astral beast would be able to bring him such a pleasant surprise. He had no intention of killing it. After all, in his opinion, the sun astral beast was just a chicken that could lay eggs. However, if it could summon its companions to provide it with flaming sun essence, then it wouldn't just be a chicken. It would be a group of chickens. Chapter 2066. Lu Yi was instantly vexed. He shouldn't have been so savage and killed so many star beasts. This time he really suffered a great loss. The quality of the flaming sun essence spat out by the moon jade star beast was obviously not as good as Rizhao's, but it was still very good. Lu Yi immediately picked up the fire gourd and swallowed it. As a reward, he also dissolved a portion of the blaze power in Rizhao's body. After receiving such treatment, Rizhao's star beast was clearly more motivated. For the rest of the journey, its calls for companions became more urgent. In less than a day, Lu Yi had gathered more than 50 star beasts. Rizhao only had the first one, Yu Yao had a few, and the rest were all constellation. Without exception, these summoned star beasts all contributed 1 or 2 strands of flaming sun essence to Lu Yi. After some observation, Lu Yi discovered the source of the flaming sun essence. It was the manifestation of the star beast's crystal cores. Therefore, even Rizhao's star beast couldn't produce too much flaming sun essence at once. The quality of the flaming sun essence they contributed was also different depending on the cultivation of the star beast. Rizhao's was undoubtedly the best, followed by Yu Yao's, and Constellation's was the worst. But even so, it was still flaming sun essence that could be directly devoured by the fire gourd. After another half a day, they returned to their original location. The number of star beasts had increased a little. A large group of them had gathered together. Lu Yi found Rizhao's star beast and held a strand of flaming sun essence in his hand. He sent it a sound transmission. I want this. A lot, a lot. Do you understand? Rizhao's star beast blinked. Its intelligence wasn't very high, but since it had already responded to Lu Yi's request, it naturally understood what he meant. It immediately turned around and squeaked at the other star beast. As if receiving an order, the star beast sank into the giant red star and disappeared. Even Rizhao's star beast disappeared in an instant. Through the blaze power, Lu Yi could sense that it was rapidly moving away, but it didn't seem to be running away. Lu Yi vaguely had some guesses, so he simply let it be and waited patiently. Anyway, as long as it can't resolve the power of brightness, it will never be able to escape from his control. If the opponent is a real spiritual wisdom cultivator, Lu Yi will have to pay more attention. but if it's just a star beast, he doesn't need to care too much. Time passed by, and the sunshine star beast that had left would return every 2 or 3 days, bringing back a different number of star beasts each time. This led to more and more star beasts gathering in the magma below Lu Yi. This completely confirmed Lu Ye's previous conjecture that it had left to summon more of its kind. It was for this reason that he had allowed the star beast to leave. Lu Yi took some time to investigate the situation of these star beasts. She discovered that they were scattered and quietly staying in their positions like fish in water. Every time they breathed, strange energy from the surrounding lava would gather in front of them and gradually transform into the appearance of flaming sun essence. This was undoubtedly an instinct of their race. Compared to cultivators who used their own techniques or treasures to refine the flaming sun essence, it was much more efficient. Lu Yi was overjoyed. This way he only needed to come back every once in a while to check on them and harvest them. The star beasts that gathered here were like crops in the field. He didn't need to worry about them at all. He didn't expect to have such a pleasant surprise after coming to the giant red star. He was already dissatisfied with the speed of the fire gourds nourishing of the strange fire. With the help of the star beasts, it would undoubtedly save him a lot of time. About a month after Lu Yi came to the giant red star, an uninvited guest suddenly came to visit. Sensing the other's aura approaching, Lu Yi hurriedly put away the fire gourd and looked up. Soon, a white-haired old man wearing a wide robe with large sleeves appeared in his field of vision. The other party was standing on a cloud of dense purple gas and had extraordinary power. He landed directly in front of Lu Yi and said in a clear voice, "This old man is Ji Boyun. Fellow Taoist Li, you've managed to gain a foothold in such a short time." Lu Yi didn't know why the other party came to find him, but when he heard the other party's voice, he knew that this was the person who had sent him a voice transmission when he first arrived here. At that time, Lu Yi had even greeted him, but this Ji Boyun didn't seem to have any intention of interacting with him. He only said that it wouldn't be too late to talk to him after a while. Lu Yi didn't understand his meaning at that time, but now he understood. This giant red star not only had a harsh environment, but also star beasts. Ordinary cultivators wouldn't be able to gain a foothold here. The fact that he could stay here for such a long time obviously meant that he had received Ji Boyun's approval. That was why he took the initiative to come and meet him. "Fellow Taoist, you're too kind. I was just lucky," Lu Yi replied. He could tell that this Ji Boyun was in the late sunshine realm. He didn't know which galaxy he came from. He was checking the other party's cultivation. Ji Boyun did the same. He asked in surprise, "Fellow Taoist Li, you're only in the early sunshine realm?" "Yes." Lu Yi nodded. Ji Boyun stroked his beard. "Your cultivation is a little weak. But since you're able to gain a foothold here, you have your merits," he commented casually, not caring whether Lu Yi was willing to listen or not. "Fellow Taoist, what brings you here?" Lu Yi asked. He had been here for a month. Although he hadn't interacted with many people, he had a rough idea of the situation on the giant red star. Putting aside the cultivators who were refining the flaming sun essence outside the giant red star, there were only 3 other cultivators who could stay here. This Ji Boyun was in the late sunshine realm. Lu Yi didn't know the cultivation of the other 2, but they were definitely stronger than him. This was because an ordinary early sunshine realm cultivator wouldn't be able to stay here for a long time. "Indeed." Ji Boyun nodded. "Let's cut to the chase. Since we're here on the giant red star, we're here to make use of the special environment to cultivate. However, you should know that we're not the only ones here. There are many sunflame beasts here. Ordinary sunflame beasts aren't much of a threat to us and we can kill them easily. However, there's a sunflame beast king that's hard to deal with. It's secretive and vigilant, and it attacks us every few days. Therefore, we've been thinking of ways to get rid of that sunflame beast king to prevent future trouble. This is also for our future cultivation. We've already planned to act soon, but since you're here, we'll need you to help us too." After listening to his explanation, Lu Yi finally understood why Ji Boyun had come to find him. The sunflame beast he mentioned should be the star beast. From Ji Boyun's point of view, it was only right for Lu Yi to help. After all, he was going to cultivate here in the future. He couldn't say that others were helping while he watched from the sidelines. There was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. However, from Lu Yi's point of view, it wasn't like that. If Ji Boyun had come to find him a month ago when he had just arrived, he might not have rejected him. However, at this point in time, the sunflame beasts were all his crops. They were chickens that could lay eggs. He couldn't wait to protect them. How could he possibly lay his hands on them? Thus, after pondering for a moment, Lu Yi said, I appreciate your kindness, but I won't be participating in this matter. I'm weak. If I rashly get involved, I'm afraid I'll drag you all down. Ji Boyun said calmly, that's fine. Since you're able to establish yourself here, you have the right to participate. We'll take action in 3 days. When the time comes, you can come over on your own. After saying that, he turned and left. Judging by his attitude, he clearly didn't intend to let Lu Yi stay out of this matter. He also didn't intend to waste any more words with him. He had come here to inform Lu Yi. Looking at Ji Boyun's back as he left, Lu Ye's expression was calm. Although he didn't know what Ji Boyun and the others were going to do, since they were going against the Sun Flame Beast King, he just needed to take care of his side. As long as he took care of the Sun Flame Beast King, Ji Boyun and the others wouldn't be able to use any tricks. As he thought of this, he channeled his mana and sank into the giant red star. After going down a few miles, he could see a large number of Sun Flame beasts scattered around, absorbing the fire energy around them. Many of the Sun Flame beasts had condensed flaming sun essence in front of them, but most of them weren't harvested yet. Lu Yi was like a lord, patrolling his own territory. At the same time, his spiritual consciousness surged in all directions. All of you work hard. Don't slack off. These Sun Flame beasts summoned by the Sun Flame Beast King weren't afraid of him. Lu Yi quickly found the location of the Sun Flame Beast King. The wounds on its body hadn't healed completely. There were still some remnants of the power of brightness. This was also Lu Ye's method of controlling it. The Sun Flame Beast King wasn't working. It was licking its wounds. Seeing Lu Ye's arrival, it instantly squeaked, indicating that it wasn't slacking off. It would immediately set off to find more companions. Just as it was about to leave, Lu Yi grabbed it and told it that there was danger outside. It shouldn't run around. The Sun Flame Beast King looked at him, confused. Lu Yi had no choice. He could only pull out his Panshan saber and slash at it. Then he pointed outside. The Sun Flame Beast King seemed to be even more confused. After a long time, Lu Yi finally returned to his own place. He wasn't sure if the Sun Flame Beast King understood what he meant. However, as long as he had the power of brightness, he could keep an eye on this guy's movements. It was better to be safe than sorry. Hence, Ji Boyun and the others were destined to fail in their mission against the Sun Flame Beast King. Fortunately, the Sun Flame Beast King seemed to have understood what he meant. In the next few days it didn't leave. This made Lu Yi very happy. In the blink of an eye, the 3-day deadline was up. Lu Yi still stayed in his own place. He activated the power of the fire gourd while paying attention to the Sun Flame Beast King. As for Ji Boyun, he didn't care at all. At the same time, in Ji Boyun's territory, 3 figures stood side by side. The one in the middle was Ji Boyun, who had gone to look for Lu Yi a few days ago. The other 2 were a man and a woman. The man was tall and sturdy, and his upper body was naked. Fiery red lines covered his entire body, making him look extremely strange. The woman had a head of red hair that seemed to be burning in flames. Even her beautiful eyes seemed to have the strange phenomenon of rising flames. End of chapter. Chapter 2067. 3 silhouettes, 3 sunshine, all of them extraordinarily powerful. The red-haired girl twirled a strand of her hair around her finger. She said slowly, "Senior Brother Ji, is the newcomer coming or not? Why does it look like he doesn't want to come? If he wanted to come, he would have shown himself long ago. He would not have been nowhere to be seen. What newcomer? I'm so strong. Can't I satisfy you?" The bare-chested man said. The red-haired girl called Jiosi's eyes lit up. She turned to the man and said coldly, "Laihua, don't force me to tear your mouth off." Laihua did not care. He just laughed. "I can't bear to tear your mouth off. I'll only tear your clothes off." "You're asking for it." Jiosi gritted her teeth. Her whole body was burning. "All right." Ji Boyun suddenly said coldly. "Let's begin." He also had a headache. Whenever these 2 fellows got together, the result would always be like this. That Laihua did not hide his desire for Jusi at all. More than once, he had said in front of Jusi that he would get her into his bed sooner or later. And Jusi was also someone who would explode at the slightest provocation. This was the shortcoming of many fire element cultivators. If not for the fact that they had to work together to defeat the Sun Flame Beast King, he would not have cooperated with them. Seeing that he had spoken, Jiosi retracted her spiritual power. She glared at Laihua and said, "That newcomer? If he doesn't want to come, then let's not care about him. I didn't include him anyway. After this, I'll talk to him personally." Jiosi was silent. She knew that Ji Boyun did not just want to talk to him. If he did not show up when he needed everyone's help, he would not be able to enjoy the peace after this. Ji Bo-yun would definitely chase him away. As he spoke, Ji Bo-yun flipped his palm and took out something. Jiu-si and Lai Ho looked over. It looked like a stick of incense. However, it was much bigger and thicker than normal incense sticks. They knew that this was a beast-attracting incense specially made for the Sun Flame Beast King. Once it was lit, most of the Sun Flame Beasts would not be able to escape. The Sun Flame Beast King was especially sensitive to this item. Ji Bo-yun had spent a lot of money to find someone to refine this item just to deal with it. Luring the Sun Flame Beast King out is easy. It's not even hard to injure it. The difficult part is killing it on the spot. The Sun Flame Beast King was not very powerful. It was mainly because of the special environment that they were in. That was why they could not kill the Sun Flame Beast King. As Ji Bo-yun spoke, he looked at Jiu-si. When the time comes, this old man will fight it head-on. If I can kill it in one fell swoop, that would be for the best, but if something unexpected happens, Jiu-si replied, "Don't worry, I brought the heaven-trapping net with me this time. As long as senior brother Ji can tie it down, it definitely won't be able to escape." Ji Bo-yun said, "The sky-wrapping net won't be able to bind it for too long. 3 breaths is enough. If it can last 3 breaths under my iron fists, I'll call it Grandpa." Ji Bo-yun nodded. "I've long heard of the barbarian race's prowess. Today I'd like to see it for myself." After the discussion, Ji Bo-yun immediately lit up the beast-attracting incense. This incense was specially made. Even in this special environment, it burned very slowly. As the fragrance drifted and the solar wind spread rapidly, an invisible aura gradually spread throughout the entire red planet. The 3 sunshine beasts also used their own methods to conceal themselves. They stood by the side. An hour later, Lu Yi suddenly felt that something was wrong. It was as if something strange had spread to his side. He took a deep breath. As expected, something was wrong. At the same time, through the feedback from the power of brightness, the Sun Flame Beast King also seemed to be abnormal. He had been vigilant. Now that he sensed something, he quickly entered the giant red star to investigate. After a while, Lu Yi was shocked. The Sun Flame beasts that had gathered here had decreased greatly. They had obviously run away. He did not know when they had run away. When he came down, he happened to see a few Sun Flame beasts rushing in one direction. They seemed to have been attracted by something. The remaining Sun Flame beasts were no longer focused on their work. They were all absent-minded. Even the Sun Flame Beast King was affected. Just as Lu Yi was observing, more Sun Flame beasts left in the same direction. The Sun Flame Beast King squeaked a few times and also rushed in that direction. Lu Yi could not stop it. Ji Bo-yun had made his move. Lu Yi did not know what method he had used, but it was obvious that he had lured the Sun Flame beasts to take the bait. This was troublesome. He had thought that everything would be fine as long as he took care of the Sun Flame Beast King. Who knew that Ji Bo-yun would take such drastic measures? Without hesitation, he rushed out and headed straight for Ji Bo-yun's territory. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, he arrived at his destination and immediately saw a huge stick of incense burning slowly below him. Beast-attracting incense. It should be a beast-attracting incense specially made for Sun Flame beasts. Otherwise, it would not have such an effect. So this was the reason. At this moment, many Sun Flame beasts had already arrived. They gathered near the beast-attracting incense and greedily breathed in its fragrance. Lu Yi could sense that there were 3 powerful auras hiding. They should be Ji Bo-yun and the others. However, because the Sun Flame Beast King had not shown up, the Sun Flame beasts that had gathered were safe. But once the Sun Flame Beast King showed up, these Sun Flame beasts would be surrounded and killed mercilessly. He had come just in time. These Sun Flame beasts were all his treasures. How could he let them die here? In a flash, he arrived before the beast-attracting incense and kept it in his storage ring. "What are you doing?" A furious roar was heard. It was not Ji Bo-yun's voice. "How dare you insult me?" This time it was Ji Bo-yun who spoke. His voice was filled with anger. As soon as he finished speaking, the hidden Ji Bo-yun suddenly appeared. His white hair moved without any wind, and he glared at Lu Yi fiercely as if he wanted to eat him. Previously, he was willing to take the initiative to look for Lu Yi and ask him to take action. He had already given Lu Yi enough face. After all, it did not matter whether Lu Yi was involved or not. The 3 of them had already planned to take action. However, seeing that Lu Yi was also staying here to cultivate, they gave him a chance to contribute. It was fine that Lu Yi did not show up at the agreed time, but now he had snatched the beast-attracting incense? How could Ji Bo-yun tolerate this? Another 2 figures appeared. Three sun beasts surrounded Lu Yi in a triangular formation. Powerful auras filled the air. The sun flame beasts that had gathered here immediately scattered like birds. They all sank into the lava and disappeared. Ji Bo Yun and the other two had no intention of killing them. To them, the only thing they needed to deal with was the Sun Flame Beast King. The other Sun Flame Beasts were not much of a threat to them. It did not matter if they killed them or not. Lu Yi looked around. His gaze lingered on Lai Hua for a moment. Then he looked at Ji Bo Yun and sighed. He clasped his fists and said, "I had no choice but to act rashly. Brother, please forgive me." Everyone had their own positions in this matter. But speaking of which, it was indeed inappropriate for him to interfere with someone else's plan. If he was in Ji Bo Yun's position, he would not be happy either. No choice. Ji Bo Yun looked at Lu Yi and said coldly, "Then I would like to hear what you have to say. If you can't explain it, then this place will be your burial ground." Lu Yi scratched his head. It was difficult for him to explain. After all, he could not tell them the truth. He could only say, "I had no choice but to ask the three of you to let the Sun Flame Beast King go. The reason why the three of you are targeting it is because it interfered with your cultivation. I can guarantee that the Sun Flame Beast King will not disturb the three of you in the future. Also, if the three of you are willing, I can compensate the three of you to a certain extent as an apology." "How can you guarantee that?" Jiushi frowned. She was very curious about this. Lu Ye's attitude was very sincere. She could naturally see that. She vaguely felt that Lu Yi really had no choice but to act this time. Compensation. "You want to compensate us?" Lai Hua seemed to have heard something strange. He could not help but laugh. The anger of the three of them could not be appeased by ordinary compensation. Lu Yi looked like he was only in the early stage of the Sunshine Realm. It was hard to say if he had the ability to do so. Lai Hua naturally would not believe him. Lu Yi nodded at him. "As long as your request is not too excessive, I will try my best to satisfy the three of you." With his identity as the master of the Wanxiang Sea, he naturally had the confidence to say these words. "Ah." Lai Hua laughed. "My friend, you look young, but your tone is not small. If that's the case." Before he could finish, Lu Yi suddenly turned his head to look at Ji Bo Yun and frowned. In his perception, the trace of Fang power that was wrapped around the Sunshine Beast King was rapidly approaching Ji Bo Yun from below. It was obviously trying to sneak an attack on him. Sure enough, in the next moment, a beast claw suddenly reached out from where Ji Bo Yun was standing. It went straight for Ji Bo Yun's chest. This sneak attack could be said to be without warning. Ji Bo Yun reacted quickly. He hurriedly raised his hand and hit the beast claw. His whole body flew out. Lu Yi had experienced the terrifying power of the Sunshine Beast King. Although Ji Bo Yun was in the late stage of the Sunshine Realm, he was not as strong as the Sunshine Beast King in this realm. He was at a disadvantage. However, while he was flying, he turned his palm into a claw and grabbed the Sunshine Beast King's wrist. He growled, "Come out." Amidst the squeaking sounds, the Sunshine Beast King appeared from the lava. It waved its limbs and scratched at Ji Bo Yun. It quickly got rid of his control and was about to return to the lava. "This is a good chance." Juicy's eyes lit up. He took out the heaven-trapping net and covered the Sunshine Beast King from below. This attack caught the Sunshine Beast King off guard. There was no way for the Sunshine Beast King to dodge. Lai Hua had already moved. The patterns on his body seemed to have come alive. As they twisted and changed, a roaring beast head condensed on his body. A ferocious beast shadow also appeared behind him. It pounced towards the Sun Flame Beast King at lightning speed. Once the Sun Flame Beast King was caught by the heaven-wrapping net, it would be killed in one strike. End of chapter. Chapter 2068. Even without any prior practice, the three Rizhao's cooperation was flawless. This was, of course, due to their rich battle experience. To be able to grow to their level, they were all seasoned warriors. The heaven-trapping net closed, and the Sun Flame Beast King had nowhere to run. Lai Hua was like a beast in human form. He pounced and threw a punch. The punch hit nothing. When the heaven-trapping net closed, the Sun Flame Beast King had already disappeared. The three of them turned their heads and looked to the side. They saw Lu Yi standing there quietly, holding the Sun Flame Beast King that should have been killed. It was obvious that he had saved the Sun Flame Beast King at the critical moment. This was out of Ji Bo Yun and the other two's expectations. No matter who it was, their cultivation was much higher than Lu Ye's. However, the speed that Lu Yi had shown in that instant was even faster than their full power. Otherwise, he would not have been able to save the Sun Flame Beast King when the three of them worked together. The Sun Flame Beast King did not seem to understand the situation. It was still in Lu Ye's hands, baring its teeth at Ji Boyun as if it had a deep grudge against him. In fact, the Sun Flame Beast King and Ji Boyun did have a grudge. It was not the only Sun Flame Beast King in the Rizhao level. There was another one. However, the other one had died at Ji Boyun's hands. This undoubtedly made the Sun Flame Beast King bear a grudge. If not, it would not have just ambushed Ji Boyun. However, this happened before Lu Yi came, so he was not aware of it. Go. When Lu Yi threw it out, he used the power of brightness slightly to give it a warning. The Sun Flame Beast King finally reacted. It fell into the lava and quickly disappeared. This time, Ji Boyun and the other two's expressions became extremely ugly. Junior, are you determined to make things difficult for me? Ji Boyun's anger was like a suppressed volcano that could erupt at any time. The original plan was very good. If Lu Yi had not suddenly attacked, the Sun Flame Beast King would have died. As long as they killed the Sun Flame Beast King, they would not have to worry about cultivating on the giant red star in the future. However, because of Lu Ye's rescue, all their efforts were in vain. Although Jiuxi and Lai Huo were not as angry as Ji Boyun, their expressions were not good. Lu Yi sighed in his heart. He cupped his fists and said, "Please calm down. I ask that the three of you seriously consider what I said just now. If you are just cultivating, there is no need to kill them all. In the future, the Fire Beast King will not bother the three of you again." He had said that just now, but none of the three took it to heart. However, after experiencing what happened just now, Ji Boyun immediately saw some clues. He forcefully suppressed the anger in his heart and asked in surprise, "You're from the beast taming school? You can control that Sun Flame Beast King?" If he wasn't a cultivator of the beast tamer school, how could he coexist peacefully with the star beasts? When Li Taibai grabbed the Sun Flame Beast King, it did not resist at all. But it was still inconceivable. Cultivators of the beast taming school could control beasts, but not star beasts. That was because star beasts had low intelligence, and it was basically impossible to control star beasts of the sunshine level. But this Li Taibai did it. For the time being, I guess. Lu Yi was too lazy to explain too much. Since Ji Boyun had such a misunderstanding, he would just let him be. What an eye-opener. Ji Boyun nodded slightly, and his expression also became gentler. It seemed like he wanted to bury the hatchet with Lu Yi. As he spoke, he suddenly stomped his foot. In an instant, the surroundings shook and flames shot into the sky. Scorching hot lava flowed and churned. A huge space of complex patterns appeared out of thin air, sealing the inside and outside. In an instant, this 1,000-mile area was enveloped by a formation. The flames on Ji Boyun's body were especially intense. They actually solidified and clung to his body like a swimming dragon, making him look extraordinary. He had already set up a formation in this place in advance. This formation was obviously prepared for the Sun Flame Beast King, but it was useless against the Sun Flame Beast King. At this time it was being used against Lu Yi. This change surprised Lu Yi. Ji Boyun's attitude clearly showed signs of softening, so Lu Yi did not expect him to change his attitude so quickly. By the time Lu Yi came back to his senses, Ji Boyun was already in front of him. Ferocious and pure soul force surged and crashed against the barrier of Lu Ye's spirit sea. At the same time, the fire dragon on Ji Boyun's body opened its mouth and bit down on Lu Yi. Not only that, two more fire dragons appeared in Ji Boyun's hands. They turned into two ropes and wrapped around Lu Yi. If it was 2 years ago when he had just entered the Sunshine Realm, Lu Yi would definitely be at a disadvantage against an experienced Sunshine Realm cultivator like Ji Boyun. However, after cultivating in the Spirita's ancestral land for 2 years, his soul-suppressing secret technique had reached a small success. His soul sea barrier had also become much stronger. Therefore, although he could feel Ji Boyun's soul power attack, he was not affected. As the sword light flashed, Lu Ye's figure swept out and instantly dodged Ji Boyun's attack. At the same time, he slashed out fiercely with his sword. Ji Boyun immediately broke out in cold sweat. He had thought that his sudden attack as a late-stage Sunshine Realm cultivator, against an early-stage Sunshine Realm cultivator, and within the array he had set up, would not be able to retaliate. Who knew that Li Taibai's reaction would be so fast? His soul power was also ridiculously strong. His soul suppression did not have any effect. In his carelessness he was almost injured by Lu Yi. As expected, those who had the right to establish themselves on this giant red star were not simple characters. What are you waiting for? Let's join forces and take him down. He can control the Sun Flame Beast King. With it as a hub, we can control the entire herd of Sun Flame Beast. The sun flame beasts are born with the ability to refine flaming sun essence. It's very beneficial to our cultivation. Ji Bo Yun roared. He had suddenly attacked without any warning. Jiuxi and Lai Ho were also confused. It was only now that they heard Ji Bo Yun's words, the two of them finally reacted. Yes, they knew that the sun flame beasts had the ability to refine flaming sun essence. In the past, they had thought of using the sun flame beast's ability to increase their cultivation speed. Unfortunately, they could not communicate with the sun flame beasts. After many failed attempts, they could only kill the sun flame beasts and refine their course. However, things were different now. Li Taibai, a cultivator of the beast taming school, was here. Furthermore, he seemed to have enslaved the sun flame beast king. Therefore, using the sun flame beast's abilities to cultivate was no longer a fantasy. It was actually achievable. As expected, the older the ginger, the spicier it was. Neither of them had thought of this, but Ji Bo Yun had already made his move. The two of them did not hesitate and pounced on Lu Yi from both sides. When Ji Bo Yun shouted, Lu Yi knew that he was in trouble. With his current foundation, he was not afraid of fighting against a late-stage Sunshine Realm cultivator like Ji Bo Yun. Although they had only exchanged blows for a short while, Lu Yi had a rough idea of his current strength. Fighting against people of a higher level was a common occurrence for him. But if Jiuxi and Lai Ho were to join in as well, things would be different. Their cultivations were similar to Ji Bo Yun's. Although they were not as strong as him, the difference was not by much. 1 against 3, there was no way he could win. Even if Lu Yi wanted to escape, now that the array formation had sealed off the area, he would have to break the array formation first. He sighed softly. Why do you have to force me? He was responsible for this matter, but he was in a different position. It was not easy to tell who was right and who was wrong. That was why he said at the beginning that he was willing to compensate the three of them to a certain extent. He could also ensure that their cultivation would not be disturbed in the future. He was not an unreasonable person. But in the cultivation world, there were times when reason did not make sense. Ji Bo Yun valued his ability to tame beasts, and wanted to capture him for his own use. Naturally, Lu Yi would not agree. 3 powerful auras locked onto him. Lu Yi suddenly put away his Panshan saber and leisurely took out his sword gourd. Since Ji Bo Yun did not want to reason with him, he could only compete with his fists. He opened the mouth of the sword gourd and aimed it in Ji Bo Yun's direction. He locked onto Ji Bo Yun's figure with his spiritual sense and channeled his spiritual energy. Almost at the same time that Lu Yi took out his sword gourd, Ji Bo Yun suddenly felt a sense of impending doom. Boundless fear descended, and all the hair on his body stood on end. After cultivating for so many years, he had never felt such fear. Especially now that he was in the late stage of the Sunshine Realm, there were very few people in the world who could threaten his life. Until today. Without any hesitation, he suddenly shouted, "With my body, I will combine the formation." The moment his spiritual energy and soul power in the late stage of the Sunshine Realm surged wildly, his entire body resonated with the formation. In an instant, the place where he was standing was enveloped in flames. The flames twisted and swelled continuously. In the blink of an eye, it turned into an indomitable fire giant. As time passed, it continued to grow. This was the secret technique of a formation cultivator. Combining the formation, one's own body and the formation that they had set up. At the cost of burning one's own spiritual energy, one could obtain more power in a short period of time. This was a secret technique that many formation cultivators would cultivate, but they would not use it easily. This was because once they used it, the lightest result would be a great loss of vitality. If they were not careful, their soul would be destroyed. However, under the threat of death, Ji Bo Yun could no longer care so much. Even though he had used the combining formation, he did not feel safe at all. Instead, the fatal aura was even stronger. Jiuxi and Lai Hua had already avoided it. In fact, the two of them had sensed that something was wrong when Lu Yi took out his sword gourd. Even though Lu Yi did not have any intention of targeting them, they still felt their souls tremble and their hearts tremble. This made them make the right choice. And now, Ji Bo Yun had actually combined the formation with his own body. This made them even more shocked. No one had expected the situation to develop like this. Originally, no one had taken Lu Yi, a newcomer, seriously. He was just in the early stage of the Sunshine Realm. Even if he had the means to control the Sun Flame Beast King, who didn't have some special abilities, cultivators still depended on who was stronger. Without a doubt, the three of them were much stronger than Lu Yi, but the current situation was obviously not right. End of chapter. Chapter 2069. On the giant red star, the towering fire giant roared. In comparison, Lu Ye's figure was as small as an ant. An inconspicuous sword light suddenly shot out. At the same time, the fire giant raised its fist and smashed down on Lu Ye's position. The power of this punch was extremely terrifying. When the fist moved, even the nearby magma was swept up like a dancing dragon. The sword light that flew out was like an embroidery needle in front of this fire giant. However, such an embroidery needle easily pierced through the flame giant's fist, pierced through his entire arm, and smashed into the space between the flame giant's eyebrows. Then, it pierced through the flame giant's body, piercing through the formation barrier that separated the inside from the outside. This array was personally set up by Ji Boyun. Although he was not an array cultivator, Sunshine had a long lifespan. When a cultivator's cultivation reached this level, their strength would increase slowly. Many Sunshine cultivators would also cultivate some external techniques to pass the time. Ji Boyun's talent in array Dao was not bad, so the array he set up was naturally not ordinary. In particular, he used the special environment here to directly increase the array's power by 30%. It was enough to ensure that enemies like the Sun Flame Beast King could not escape from this array. However, even such a tenacious formation was unable to stop the sword light in the slightest. Almost at the instant the sword light touched the array barrier, it directly pierced through it. There seemed to be a crashing sound in everyone's heart. Jiuxi and Lai Hua, who had already dodged, were both horrified. For some reason, the fire giant's aggressive attack suddenly stopped. Then its huge body quickly shrunk, like a deflated balloon. In just 3 breaths, all the flames dissipated, revealing the withered figure of Ji Boyun. At this moment, Ji Boyun's entire body was like a broken porcelain. The surface of his body was full of cracks and blood flowed. He was holding on to his last breath to not die. This was the disadvantage of using the body as an array. If the array was broken, the cultivator would die without a doubt. He stared in Lu Ye's direction with a look of horror on his face and roared, "Xiang Bao! Attribute treasure. Who are you? Who are you?" He had never imagined that he would one day die under the attack of an attribute treasure. With his cultivation, he could indeed be considered a peak existence in the starry sky. Very few people could threaten his life, but this definitely didn't include offensive attribute treasures. To be able to easily break through his fire giant's body and break through his formation's attack, there was only a treasure in this world. However, although the number of attribute treasures in this world was not small, they were all limited. Basically, they were all used by the major realms as treasures to protect their realms and would not be used easily, not to mention being carried around by a cultivator. And the cultivator with the treasure was only in the early stage of the Sunshine realm. Which realm's cultivators were so bold? How could a Sunshine early-stage cultivator bring such a precious treasure around? Such a ridiculous thing was unheard of. He could not get an answer. After he shouted those words, he could no longer hold on. His body shattered like a formation. Lu Yi retracted the much dimmer sword light. He turned to look at Jiuxi and Lai Hua. Even though the two of them were at the late stage of the Sunshine realm and had seen a lot of things, they were still stunned. It had only been 10 breaths of time since Ji Boyun made his move. A late-stage Sunshine realm cultivator had died just like that. And Ji Boyun's last words were even more unbelievable. Just as Ji Boyun thought, which realm's cultivator was Li Tai Bai from? Why was he running around with a treasure? Wasn't he afraid of being coveted? Suddenly feeling Lu Ye's gaze, Jiuxi's heart tightened. But on second thought, although the power of an attribute treasure was strong, it consumed a lot of energy. Many attribute treasures needed to be nourished after being used once. She had seen the change in the sword light just now and naturally knew that Lu Yi could not use the same attack as before. This was an opportunity, a treasure. If she missed this opportunity, she might not have another one in the future. So after a short moment of panic, Jiuxi's eyes immediately lit up. Her spiritual sense surged as she secretly transmitted her voice to Lai Hua. Lu Yi saw the change in her expression and naturally knew what this woman was planning. Lu Yi didn't care about Jiuxi's life or death, but this Lai Hua. After pondering for a moment, he said, "Do the two of you have any other advice?" Jiuxi took a step forward and stared at Lu Yi with burning eyes. "I don't dare to give advice. I just want to borrow something from you." Lu Yi turned to look at her. "What do you want to borrow?" Jiuxi smiled. "Why do you ask when you already know the answer? You should know what I want to borrow." Lu Yi said indifferently, "Ji Boyun is already dead. Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you too?" Jiuxi said in a low voice, "I naturally can't block the power of a treasure. But can you still use that attack just now? Fellow, we've met by chance and have no grievances. But since ancient times, wealth has moved people's hearts. It's a pity to miss such a good opportunity. Lu Yi nodded. Indeed, I can't use that attack just now. He looked at Lai Hua. What about you, fellow Taoist? Do you want to borrow that thing too? Lai Hua shook his head. I won't. For us barbarian tribe cultivators, our bodies are everything. What use do we have for external objects? Lu Ye's heart settled. To be honest, if possible, he didn't want to have any conflict with Lai Hua. This was because Lu Yi recognized him as a barbarian tribe cultivator at first glance. He had some friendship with Abdul. This Lai Hua should be one of Abdul's elders. If he killed him, he wouldn't be able to explain it to Abdul. Of course, if Lai Hua insisted on opposing him, he wouldn't be merciful. Fortunately, such a thing didn't happen. This saved him some trouble. Jiu wasn't surprised by Lai Hua's answer. It was clear that Lai Hua had already given her an answer when she transmitted her voice. This was also what she wanted. There was only one treasure. If Lai Hua was really interested in it, the two of them might have to fight to determine who it belonged to. Alright, let's not talk too much. Fellow Taoist, please hand over the treasure. Jiu stared at Lu Yi without blinking. Lu Yi flipped his hand and the treasured gourd appeared. He looked at Jiu indifferently. You want it? Come and take it yourself. Jiu stared at Lu Yi. Seeing that he didn't panic at all and instead looked calm and composed, as if he didn't put her in his eyes at all, she immediately snorted coldly, pretending to be mysterious. The more Lu Yi was so calm, the more she felt that he was deliberately mystifying things. As she spoke, her body flashed and she pounced forward. But in the next moment she frowned. This was because she suddenly realized that this treasured gourd seemed a little different from the one she saw just now. Indeed, there was no difference in shape or size. The surface was covered in extremely complicated vein patterns, but upon closer inspection, those vein patterns seemed to be slightly different from the ones she saw before. The world is full of fools. Men die for wealth and birds die for food. As Lu Yi sighed, the mouth of the gourd turned and aimed at Jiu. A ball of fire suddenly flew out and enveloped Jiu. At this moment, Jiu finally experienced the same feeling as Ji Bo Yun. It was a boundless horror that suddenly descended upon her, causing her soul to tremble. It was as if she had encountered the world's greatest calamity. She fiercely urged her magic power to try and dodge, but the strange fire was too fast. Jiu had no room to dodge and was hit directly. In the next moment, a miserable scream rang out. The strange fire suddenly expanded and enveloped Jiu. Lai Hua, who was standing to the side, instantly widened his eyes. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. Jiu's blood-curdling screams were extremely shrill, as if she had been subjected to the most vicious torture. She madly channeled her spiritual energy and summoned one treasure after another. However, no matter what she did, she couldn't extinguish the strange fire on her body. Instead, under her resistance, the strange fire burned even more fiercely. Fellow Taoist, please spare me. Please let me go. Jiu could no longer hold on. She struggled and begged for mercy. Lu Yi turned a deaf ear to her and only quietly looked at her. Killing Ji Bo Yun was a counterattack because he had no other choice. Under those circumstances, the only thing he could do was to kill the enemy as quickly as possible. He actually didn't want to kill Jiu and Lai Hua. However, they were courting death. Since things had gotten to this point, Lu Yi naturally couldn't be merciful. He could only kill them. Lai Hua, save me. Lu Yi's begging had no effect. Jiu could only turn to Lai Hua. In this short period of time, more than half of her life force had been consumed. Fortunately, she was a cultivator of the fire attribute. Her cultivation was high enough to resist the strange fire of the gourd to a certain extent. Otherwise she would have died long ago. Lai Hua glanced at Lu Yi. Seeing his indifferent expression, he couldn't help but sigh. He raised his fist and his magic power surged. Then he brazenly punched in Jiu's direction. Under this punch, Jiu, who was still struggling, suddenly stopped breathing. He didn't beg for mercy from Lu Yi. His friendship with Jiu hadn't reached that level. Although he always said that he would get Jiu on his bed sooner or later, that was just something he found fun when he was bored. Now that it was a matter of life and death, he was clear about it. He knew that begging for mercy was useless, so he might as well give Jiu a quick death. Fellow Taoist Lai Hua is kind-hearted. Lu Yi glanced at Lai Hua and activated the fire gourd. The strange fire that hadn't been completely consumed was retracted. Only a charred corpse was left. Of the 3 late Sunshine Realm cultivators, 2 had died in a short period of time. Only Lai Hua was left. Lai Hua slowly shook his head. He didn't have any intention of communicating with Lu Yi. He was also a little panicked because he realized that Lu Yi had at least 2 treasures on him. The gourd that killed Ji Bo Yun and the one that killed Josie were obviously not the same. An early Sunshine Realm cultivator carrying a treasure on him was already exaggerated enough. To have 2, it was simply terrifying. Since he had 2, he might have a third. In front of Lu Yi, Lai Hua didn't feel safe at all. He didn't dare to stay in this place for too long. Anyway, the giant red star was here. Lu Yi couldn't keep cultivating here. It wouldn't be too late for him to come back in a few years. End of chapter. Chapter 2070. Lai Hua had thoughts of retreating, but he did not dare to act rashly because he did not know what Lu Ye's attitude towards him was. Even though he did not feel any hostility, Lu Ye's killing intent just now was clearly not easy to get along with. This kind of person who appeared calm on the surface but attacked like lightning was actually the hardest to get along with. Lai Hua knew this very well. He felt pity for Ji Boyun and Josie. If Ji Boyun had agreed to the other's proposal at the beginning, he would not have been killed. But of these 2, one coveted the method to control the Imperial Sun Flame Beast King, and the other coveted the treasure. In the end, they both died and he was now in a dilemma. He gritted his teeth and said, "Fellow, this matter has nothing to do with me. Fellow Ji and Josie are already dead. Let's end it here." Lu Yi nodded. "It has nothing to do with you, but..." He changed the topic and said with a faint smile, "If I had not acted quickly enough, I would have been attacked by the 3 of you." These words were not wrong. When Ji Bo Yun made his move, he had called out to them. Whether it was Josie or Lai Hua, both of them were very tempted by his suggestion. After all, they came here to borrow the special environment of this place to cultivate. If there really was a better way, no one would miss it. Lai Hua knew he was in the wrong and said in a low voice, "Then what does fellow want? Why don't you just say it?" Lu Yi knew that most of the barbarians were straightforward and did not like to beat around the bush. He nodded and said, "In that case, please stay here and help me refine the Flaming Sun essence. Since you have chosen to cultivate here, you should have the means to refine it." Lai Hua was stunned. "You want me to help you refine the Flaming Sun essence?" Lu Yi narrowed his eyes at him. "In this world, any unprovoked hostility has a price. What do you think, fellow?" Lai Hua's expression was ugly, his heart was filled with unwillingness, but he also agreed with Lu Ye's words. If he were in Lu Ye's position, he would definitely not let this matter rest. After all, he had indeed shown hostility towards Lu Yi before, but because Lu Yi had acted too quickly, he did not succeed. After struggling for a while, Lai Hua sighed dejectedly. "Fine, I will help you refine the Flaming Sun essence, but there must be a time limit, right?" Lu Yi said, "How about 1,000 Flaming Sun essences?" He didn't know how efficient the fire was in refining the Flaming Sun essence, but since it was at the late stage of the Sunshine Realm, its refining speed shouldn't be too slow. It probably wouldn't take too long to refine 1,000 Flaming Sun essences. Lai Hua also silently calculated in his heart. The corner of his eyes twitched slightly, but in the end, he still agreed. "Okay. Then it's settled." Lu Yi happily agreed. He didn't leave Lai Hua behind because he lacked Flaming Sun essence. It was just that every late-stage Sunshine expert had a powerful background. He had killed Ji Boyun and Josie here. If he let Lai Hua leave, the matter here might be exposed. It would definitely be troublesome. He came here to cultivate because he didn't want to be disturbed. Originally there were 4 cultivators on the giant red star, but now there were only 2 left. Lu Yi took Ji Boyun and Josie's storage rings. After a quick check, he found that the 2 of them had decent wealth, which could be considered as some gains. Lai Hua sat not far away, using his own method to refine the Flaming Sun essence. He had undoubtedly accepted his fate. He was also a reasonable person. If he had insisted on escaping, Lu Yi wouldn't have stopped him. After thinking for a while, Lu Yi took out the beast-attracting incense he kept and lit it. A strange fragrance wafted, spreading under the solar wind. The nearby sun flame beasts all gathered around the beast-attracting incense, breathing in greedily. They all had expressions of ecstasy on their faces. The Sun Flame Beast King occupied the best spot. As time passed, more Sun Flame Beasts were attracted by the beast-attracting incense. The scale gradually increased and their numbers also increased. Previously, the Sun Flame Beast King would run out every few days to find its own kind and bring them back to help Lu Yi. However, the efficiency wasn't very high. Now that the beast-attracting incense was lit, it was much more convenient. When the beast-attracting incense burned out, the scale of the sun flame beasts had increased by more than 3 times. This shouldn't be all the sun flame beasts on the giant red star, but there should only be a few left. With the sun flame beast king around, Lu Yi didn't have to worry too much. The sun flame beast spread out and focused on refining the flaming sun essence. At first, Lu Yi had to harvest from time to time, but after a few times he found it too troublesome. He called the sun flame beast king over and gave him instructions. After a while he didn't need to harvest anymore. Those sun flame beasts that finished refining the flaming sun essence would run to him and offer it up. This saved him a lot of trouble. Although some sun flame beasts were lazy and ran away, it wasn't a big problem. As long as he controlled the sun flame beast king, he could control the entire sun flame beast horde. Other than the sun flame beasts, Lai Hua also contributed his own flaming sun essence. Every 3 days he would deliver an extremely pure stream of flaming sun essence to Lu Yi. Then he would go somewhere nearby and continue to refine it. Lu Yi realized that he had overestimated the speed at which he could refine the flaming sun essence. Or rather, the raging flame had extremely high requirements for the quality of the flaming sun essence. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him, a late Sunshine Realm cultivator, to take 3 days to refine one. He could refine a few flaming sun essences a day. But then the quality of the flaming sun essence would be very poor. But now the flaming sun essence refined by fire was almost the same quality as the sun flame beast king's, or even better. 1 flaming sun essence every 3 days. Even if he refined it non-stop, it would still take more than 8 years. Lai Hua actually agreed. But to be honest, 8 years was nothing to a late Sunshine Realm cultivator. Because of this, the fire gourd's efficiency of nurturing the special fire increased exponentially. On average, it could nurture 3 balls of special fire every 2 days. All of them were devoured by the talent tree. All Lu Yi had to do was wait. He didn't idle around. While he waited, he either refined spirit jades to raise his cultivation or swallowed a supreme spirit refining pill to cultivate the soul-subduing secret skill. Although he had achieved a small success in the soul-subduing secret skill, it required him to cultivate it throughout the entire Sunshine Realm. Hence he couldn't slack off. Day after day the special fire continued to devour, causing some changes to the talent tree. But Lu Yi didn't know when it would transform. The difficulty of this transformation was many times greater than the previous 3 times. If not for the help of a treasure like the fire gourd, it would be impossible for Lu Yi to find so many fire-type resources comparable to the fire gourd's special fire for the talent tree to devour. On this day, Lai Hua sent over another batch of refined flaming sun essence. He watched Lu Yi activate the fire gourd to absorb it with his own eyes. He wanted to say something but stopped himself. Although he had agreed to Lu Ye's previous request because he was in the wrong, anyone who encountered such a situation would more or less have some resentment in their hearts. Therefore during these days he had never communicated with Lu Yi. He was like a laborer under Lu Ye's command, quietly doing his job. But he was also curious. Seeing him like this, Lu Yi couldn't help but smile. Fellow Taoist Lai Hua, if you have any questions feel free to ask. Right now there are only the 2 of us on this giant red star. I may not be able to stay for long. After I leave you'll be the only one left. At that time you won't even have someone to talk to. Hearing him say this, Lai Hua thought that it made sense and simply didn't hold back. He sat down in front of Lu Yi and looked at the fire gourd. If I'm not wrong, this is the treasure of the Yuan world, right? When Jiao Yi died, Lai Hua already had a guess in his heart. After so many days of observation, he was increasingly certain that this was the treasure. Fellow Taoist has good eyesight. Lu Yi nodded. This thing is indeed the treasure of the Yuan world. Then fellow Taoist is from the Yuan world? Lai Hua looked at Lu Yi curiously. He had never heard of such a person in the Yuan world before. Lu Yi shook his head slowly. Instead of answering he asked, "How long has fellow Taoist been cultivating here?" "It's been a long time." Lai Hua did a little calculation. "Almost 20 years. This was no wonder. Judging from Lai Hua's appearance, he obviously knew nothing about the changes in the outside world. He probably didn't expect that the Wanxiang Sea had already changed. The Wanxiang Galaxy had also lost its rule over the Wanxiang Sea. If he knew about this, he should be able to guess his identity. After all, it was no secret that the fire gourd of the Yuan world was in his hands. The Three-World Island wouldn't publicize this matter, and Jiao Yan wouldn't spread the news either. However, the news still spread. It was obvious that the Yuan world had released the news. Lai Hua said again, Fellow Taoist, the gourd you used to kill Ji Boyun is very similar to this treasure. Could it be that this treasure is also one of the treasures of the Vine of Good Fortune? Lu Yi smiled but didn't say anything. Lai Hua didn't ask any more questions. He wasn't an inarticulate person. Previously, he didn't communicate with Lu Yi mainly because he was annoyed. Now that he had started, the two of them would chat from time to time in the following days. It could be considered as passing the time. Lu Yi did not mention anything about Abro to him. That was a separate matter. The reason why he did not make a move on Lai Hua back then was already because of Abro. If Lu Yi had not seen through his identity as a barbarian, he might have really gotten rid of him. "Oh right, fellow Taoist, you said that you wouldn't stay here for too long. When will you leave?" After a while, Lai Hua suddenly asked about this matter. Lu Yi immersed his mind and checked the progress of the talent tree. He shook his head slowly. "I don't know. When he would leave would depend on the changes in the talent tree." However, after swallowing so many strange flames, the talent tree had changed, but it hadn't reached the stage of metamorphosis. Lu Yi couldn't make a judgment right now. Lai Hua said, "Fellow Taoist, before you leave, can you teach me how to control that Sun Flame Beast King? Don't worry, I'll definitely give you a satisfactory reward." These days, he had seen the Sun Flame Beast deliver the refined Flaming Sun essence to Lu Yi with his own eyes. He was extremely envious. If he had such ability, he wouldn't have to waste so much time here. He would have achieved great success long ago. End of chapter. Chapter 2071. After spending some time with Lu Yi, Lai Hua realized that he was an easygoing person. Naturally, Lai Hua wanted to control the Sun Flame Beast King. If he succeeded, it would bring him great benefits. Lu Yi smiled and shook his head. "I can't do anything about it." Lai Hua felt sorry for Lu Yi, but he did not say anything else. He thought that Lu Yi could control the Sun Flame Beast King because of his beast-taming skills. This was not something that could be learned by others. However, the truth was that Lu Yi was controlling the Sunshine Beast King with the power of brightness. The wounds on the Beast King had never healed. The Sunshine Beast King was actually very cunning. Without the power of brightness, it would have escaped immediately. It would not have allowed itself to be controlled by Lu Yi. Time passed. Lu Yi had thought that it would not take him too long to achieve his goal in such a unique environment like the giant red star. However, even with the help of the Sun Flame Beasts and the help of the blazing fire, it still took him 3 years before he could see any hope of success. It was conceivable that if not for the Sun Flame Beast King, the fire gourd alone would not have been able to hold on for decades. It would have taken him at least 100 years. He had almost used up all the spiritual jades, crystals, and supreme-grade pills he had brought from the 10,000 Elephant Sea. In exchange, his cultivation and soul-soothing secret technique had improved. On a certain day 3 years after he arrived at the giant red star, Lu Yi sat cross-legged on the surface of the giant red star with a calm expression. Even so, Lai Hua, who was at the side, saw through some clues. He looked at Lu Yi curiously. "Fellow Taoist, did you encounter something good?" Lu Yi nodded. "I have some enlightenment." In front of him, sun flame beasts lined up to deliver refined flaming sun essence for the fire gourd to devour. A ball of strange fire was slowly born. After half a day, the strange fire was finally complete. Lu Yi immediately activated the power of the talent tree. Invisible roots reached into the fire gourd and devoured the strange fire in the blink of an eye. The next moment, Lu Yi felt his body tremble slightly, as if something strange had happened. At this moment, the innate skill tree that was burning fiercely in his body suddenly burst out with bright flames, as if a new sun had been born. Immediately after, the rays of light quickly converged at the location of the source spiritual cavity. At this moment, Lu Yi only felt that the connection between him and the talent tree was extremely weak, but his expression was one of joy and excitement. Looking into his body, he could no longer see the talent tree. Only a small flame was burning in his source aperture like a fire seed. He calmed his heart and felt that there was a wonderful change taking place within the fire seed. It was indescribable and mysterious. Lu Yi had experienced several transformations in his talent tree, but this one gave him the most novel feeling. He immediately knew that he was right. The cost of this transformation couldn't be compared to the previous transformations. His talent tree was probably going to undergo a huge change. Now, he wasn't sure what this change was or what kind of new power the talent tree would give birth to. He could only wait until the fire seed was broken and the talent tree revealed itself again to investigate. And this would take some time, but no matter what, her objective for coming here had been achieved. Her long wait had finally come to fruition at this moment, and Lu Ye's heart was at ease as she let out a light sigh of relief. Lai Hua, who was at the side, did not understand. Lu Yi wasn't in a hurry to leave the giant red star. Now that he had such a rare opportunity to obtain Flaming Sun Essence so easily, he naturally had to store more. In the future, whether it was the fuel for the talent tree or the special fire nurtured by the fire gourd, they would all need to be used. He stayed on the giant red star for another month and collected a large amount of Flaming Sun Essence as backup, all of which were stored in the Little Flower realm. This much Flaming Sun Essence was enough for the fire gourd to nurture dozens of special fires. It was enough for a short period of time. Moreover, the giant red star was right here, so it wasn't troublesome to come over from the 10,000 Elephant Sea. It wouldn't be troublesome to make a trip there in the future. Fellow Lai Hua. Lu Yi turned to look at Lai Hua beside him. I'm leaving. Lai Hua was a little shocked. You're leaving just like that? Then our previous agreement. It's considered done. Lu Yi nodded. Lai Hua definitely couldn't refine 1,000 Flaming Sun Essences in 3 years. Lai Hua sighed. I'm really the only one left. Almost 3 years ago, Lu Yi said he wouldn't stay here for too long. However, Lai Hua didn't expect Lu Yi to leave just like that, without any warning at all. Also, he didn't even know what Lu Yi was doing these days. All of the Flaming Sun Essences had been devoured by the fire gourd. Logically speaking, even if the fire gourd was a treasure, it shouldn't be able to eat so much. Lu Yi stood up, pulled out the Pan Mountain saber and shook it slightly. Below the lava, the Sun Flame Beast King that had worked hard for Lu Yi for many years suddenly felt something, then flew towards the depths of the giant red star without looking back. The strange power that had wrapped around its wound had disappeared. It had been waiting for this moment all along. Why would it hesitate? And without its suppression, the Sun Flame Beasts gathered here quickly scattered like birds. Lu Yi sensed this. Even though he guessed this would happen, he still felt speechless. Fellow Taoist, I hope you'll gain something soon. When you master the divine art, you can come find me at the 3-World Island in the 10,000 Elephant Sea. Lu Yi looked at Lai Hua, then flew away, quickly flying out of the giant red star. The 3-World Island? Lai Hua stood where he was, deep in thought. He had never heard of this spiritual island, and since when did the spiritual island in the 10,000 Elephant Sea allow sunshine to stay? He couldn't be bothered to think too much. Lu Yi had gotten what he wanted and left, but he still had to work hard. After leaving the giant red star, Lu Yi went back the way he came. Along the way, he met cultivators who came here to cultivate or refine the Flaming Sun Essences. The further out he went, the lower the cultivation of the cultivators. He paid special attention to the places he passed by earlier, but didn't see Fei Zhuang and Hong Yan. In this place, the further out it was, the more mobile the cultivators were. They either left after gaining something or got into an accident in a fight. Anything could happen in 3 years. On the other hand, a sunshine powerhouse like Lai Hua stayed on the giant red star for more than 20 years. Lu Yi had originally planned to give Fei Zhuang and Hong Yan some gifts as thanks for leading the way. Since he didn't meet them, then so be it. He flew towards the worm path. When Lu Yi returned to the 3-World Island, half a month had passed. Sensing his return, Tang Jun and He Baichuan immediately rushed over, ready to report on the situation in the 10,000 Elephant Sea in recent years. In the years that Lu Yi wasn't here, the 10,000 Elephant Sea had undergone many strange changes. In the palace, Lu Yi looked at Tang Jun in surprise. Old Tang, you really advanced? Tang Jun chuckled. What's so difficult about advancing to the late Moonjade stage? I just didn't want to. If I wanted to, I would have advanced to the sunshine level long ago. How could you little brats be the best? Old Tang had indeed advanced to the late stage of the Moonjade realm. This could be seen from the magic power fluctuations he deliberately displayed. Moreover, after advancing, Old Tang's spirit and appearance had improved a lot. He even looked younger than before. He Baichuan cut in. Yes. You're extremely talented. As for the late Moonjade stage, you've only failed 3 to 5 times. What's the big deal? 3 to 5 times? Lu Yi was surprised. Old Tang waved his hand. Let bygones be bygones. Let's not talk about it. It was obvious that Old Tang's advancement in the late Moonjade stage was not easy. When Lu Yi came back last time, he heard that Old Tang was in seclusion and did not succeed. In the past few years, he must have tried a few more times and finally advanced. Good news. Lu Yi was delighted. Among the cultivators of the 3 realms, other than the cultivators of the 9 regions, the relationship between Lu Yi and Old Tang was the deepest. After all, when the two of them were stranded here, it could be said that they depended on each other for a while. That's not the only good news. He Baichuan chuckled. In the past few years, there have been more than 100 new moon jade stage cultivators on our island. Senior brother Cho Wu, elder Yushi of the Mermaid clan, and junior sister Wuxia have all gained enlightenment and are now in seclusion to advance to the sunshine level. Lu Ye's eyes lit up. Senior brother Cho Wu and elder Yushi aside, Wuxia is also advancing to the sunshine level? Cho Wu was the original realm lord of the Jade Conch realm. Although this title was only in name, his cultivation level was indeed the highest in the entire Jade Conch realm. Wuxia was able to advance to the sunshine level earlier because of the good fortune of cultivating in the Wanxiang Sea and the guidance of others. Since Wuxia could advance to the sunshine level, Cho Wu had the potential to do so as well. Elder Yushi was the second elder of the Mermaid clan. In terms of cultivation level, he was only below Yen Miao. Lu Yi was not surprised that the two of them were advancing to the sunshine level. However, Wuxia was also in seclusion. This must have something to do with Small Melon. Small Melon was a starry sky treasure and Small Melon was Huasi's natal pet beast. With a starry sky treasure as her natal pet beast, no matter how amazing Huasi's performance was, it would not be an exaggeration. Tang Jun said, "It's not just our island. The overall foundation of the major spiritual islands in the Wanxiang Sea has improved tremendously. The shackles that many cultivators have been stuck in for many years have loosened. The advancement of the Moon Jade stage in the sunshine level has become much easier than before." Lu Yi knew that this must have something to do with the arrival of the general trend. From the looks of it, the closer it was to the arrival of the general trend, the more obvious the changes in the starry sky became. And this change was reflected in the cultivators, which meant that cultivation had become easier. There are also spiritual islands. He Baichuan added, more and more deserted islands have come alive. There are also many spiritual islands that have been upgraded. In recent years there have been 2 more top-grade spiritual islands in the Wanxiang Sea. The biggest difference between a top-grade spiritual island and a high-grade spiritual island was the birth of its own spirit jade mine. This was a great thing for any force. What about Four Corner Island? What's the situation there? Lu Yi asked. He remembered hearing He Baichuan mention that Four Corner Island had also undergone some positive changes. He Baichuan said, Four Corner Island is still a high-grade spiritual island, but there are already signs of a qualitative change. According to the news from Four Corner Island, there are signs of the birth of a spirit jade mine. I'm afraid it will become a top-grade spiritual island in the future. Chapter 2072. In the years that Lu Yi was not around, the 10,000 Elephant Sea had changed a lot. However, with the deterrence of the Starry Sky treasure, there was not much chaos on the whole. The various forces were quite willing to abide by the rules set by Lu Yi. After chatting with He Baichuan and Tang Jun for a while, Lu Yi left the palace. When he arrived at a large hall, a cultivator on duty immediately greeted him. Island Lord. Lu Yi nodded and instructed, go to Heart Island. Speaking of which, ever since the dwarfs established themselves in the 10,000 Elephant Sea, he had never been to Heart Island. This time he was prepared to take a look and visit Su Yuqing at the same time. Yes. The cultivator on duty responded and quickly began to adjust the teleportation formation here. A moment later, the formation buzzed and shone with light. Lu Ye's figure disappeared. There were now teleportation formations connecting the few top-grade spiritual islands under the control of this realm. It was much more convenient to travel between them than before. What surprised Lu Yi was that Su Yuqing wasn't on Fangsuan Island. Instead, it was Wu Qima who was overseeing this place. After chatting for a while, Lu Yi found out that Su Yuqing had returned to Fangsuan Mountain more than a year ago, and Wu Qima had come over to stand guard. Lu Yi felt rather helpless that he did not find her. Wu Qima, on the other hand, was very enthusiastic and invited him to drink some old wine, making Lu Yi drunk. After returning to the Three-World Island from Heart Island, Lu Yi gave some instructions. Half a day later, he led a group of peak constellation cultivators to the Merfolk territory. In recent years, whenever he was free, he would bring the constellation cultivators of the Three-World Island to the Constellation Hall to advance their Yu Yao. The quality of their art sources would be better if they advanced in the Constellation Hall. This way the cultivators would have a better future. After advancing their Yu Yao, their cultivation speed would also be faster. From the Merfolk territory, he arrived at the Constellation Hall with ease. He pushed open the dusty door and let the constellation cultivators find a place to advance their Yu Yao. He himself went to a corner of the constellation hall and bent down to pick up an item. It was an item that looked like a small tattered umbrella. It was the heavenly Luo umbrella that Xinyun used to have. This thing had been destroyed by Small Melon's golden light. Lu Yi had thought that it was useless, but later he found out that this thing could be repaired but not by human means. If it was placed in a spirit jade vein it could slowly recover, but it would take time to grow. Apart from this, it was to place it together with other supreme treasures. If they were compatible, the supreme treasure would be warm, and the damaged attribute treasure would also have a chance to recover. At first, Lu Yi gave the damaged heavenly Luo umbrella to Wuxia, wanting to see if Little Melon's power could repair this treasure. However, the result was that there was no effect. It was obvious that the three treasures wishing coin and the heavenly Luo umbrella were incompatible. Thinking about it, the three treasures wishing coin had a powerful sealing power, while the heavenly Luo umbrella had a defensive power. Naturally, the two had nothing in common. When Wuxia realized this, she returned the umbrella to Lu Yi. Later on, when Lu Yi came here, she left the umbrella behind. That was a few years ago. At present, the heavenly Luo umbrella still showed no signs of being repaired, which meant that the starry sky treasure, the constellation hall, was of no help in repairing the heavenly Luo umbrella. Since that was the case, she could only place it in the spirit jade mine. This was the safest method, but it would take a very long time. A few days later, most of the constellations that had followed Lu Yi here had advanced to Yu Yao. Only a few had failed. Lu Yi wasn't surprised. Not every constellation could advance to Yu Yao. Even though the cultivation environment was gradually improving, everyone had their own limits. Moreover, even if they didn't succeed this time, they would still have another chance as long as their potential wasn't exhausted. Lu Yi led everyone back to the Merfolk clan's territory, then glanced at Wuxia from afar. Wuxia was cultivating in seclusion here, her entire body submerged in the seawater. Even Little Melon was beside her, its eyes tightly shut. There was a mysterious resonance between the two of them. She didn't disturb them. It wasn't the time to disturb them. After returning to the three-world island from the Merfolk clan's territory, Lu Yi had been waiting. He was waiting for his talent tree to complete its transformation. However, this transformation was different from the previous ones. Not only was the effort and price much higher than before, but there was also no sign of the fire seed's rebirth. 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. During these 2 months, Lu Yi stayed on the three-world island. His talent tree hadn't completed its transformation, so it wasn't easy for him to cultivate. However, it wasn't a problem for him to polish his soul-subduing secret technique. It was rare for him to have such leisure time. However, this leisure time was destined to be short-lived. On the calm 10,000 manifestation sea, a star boat flew past at high speed. A pale-faced middle-aged man stood quietly on the star boat. Behind him were 2 other figures, both of whom were dressed in loose robes with hoods covering their bodies, making it impossible to see their faces clearly. Although their appearance was a little strange, it was nothing in the myriad phenomenon sea that could accommodate hundreds of rivers. The middle-aged man in the lead scanned the surroundings with his sharp gaze. When the cultivators who passed by met his gaze, they instinctively felt a chill in their hearts and hurriedly looked away. After a short while, a spirit island appeared in front of them. The middle-aged man said softly, "Let's choose this place." This spirit island wasn't very big. It wasn't a top-grade spirit island, nor was it a high-grade spirit island. It was just a middle-grade spirit island. However, there were many cultivators gathered on it. It was unknown which force they belonged to, but it was just enough to satisfy their requirements. The planetary boat stopped. The middle-aged man turned his head and looked at the 2 people behind him. "Elders, are you ready?" The faces hidden under the hood slowly lifted, revealing 2 old and withered faces. One of them said weakly, "Hee, there's no need to prepare anything. It's our honor to be able to sacrifice ourselves for the future of our clan before we die." Although the other one didn't say anything, he also nodded solemnly. The middle-aged man was filled with respect. Although these 2 elders didn't have much time left, it was still admirable that they could come here without any hesitation. After pondering for a while, he said, "Actually, there's something I don't understand." The elder who spoke before said, "You want to ask why we chose this place, right?" "Yes." The middle-aged man nodded. The 10,000 Elephant Sea is indeed one of the central areas of the universe. However, this place is filled with experts. I heard that the master of the 10,000 Elephant Sea has a starry sky treasure. This place doesn't seem to be the best location. Choosing a place like this to act was destined to lead to no good results. The elder said, "Don't ask me. I don't know why either. However, since this is the order of the high priest, he naturally has his reasons." The other elder who hadn't spoken until now said, "I heard the high priest casually mention that the 10,000 Elephant Sea has a weak point. Therefore we can only choose this place. Today's matter is just to pave the way for the future." Pave the way for a weak point? The middle-aged man didn't understand. "What do you mean?" The second elder slowly shook his head. Obviously he didn't know the answer either. In the clan, only the high priest who controlled the clan artifact could sense some of the mysteries. No matter how strong the other clansmen were, they didn't have this ability. However, after so many years, the various incidents in the clan all proved the high priest's foresight and boundless wisdom. "This is the territory of the Jade Sword Island. What business do the three of you have? If there's nothing important, please leave quickly." A voice came from afar. Apparently, the cultivators of the Jade Sword Island had noticed that the three of them had stayed here for too long and issued a warning. The middle-aged man turned his head and glanced at the cultivator who spoke. The star boat flew forward. "Where is the island master of your esteemed island? We were just about to pay him a visit." "Pay a visit to the island master? May I ask how I should address you?" As soon as he finished asking, he shouted in surprise, "Why aren't you stopping? The three of you aren't doing this to pay him a visit." The star boat was actually moving faster and faster. On the three-world island, Lu Yi was polishing his soul-subduing secret technique when he suddenly sensed something. He flashed out of his palace and hovered in the air, looking into the distance. In that direction he could hear Rizhao's movements, and there was more than one. This caused his face to darken. It had only been a few years and someone actually dared to break the rules he had set. It seemed that the three-world island had been too quiet these years, and some people dared to not put him in their eyes. Back when he had taken control of the 10,000 Elephant Sea, Lu Yi had made it clear that Rizhao could come to his top-grade spiritual island and guard it, but he couldn't interfere in any battles. That direction was not far from the Mermaid Island. As this thought flashed through Lu Ye's mind, he directly rushed towards the teleportation formation. After entering the main hall, he ordered people to adjust the formation and directly teleported to the Mermaid Island. Although the Mermaid Island was named after the Mermaid clan, the number of Mermaid clan cultivators was too small. Therefore, the people of the land of the 9 prefectures were still the majority. Yan Miao and Wan Xiao were guarding the island. When Lu Yi appeared, the two women immediately sensed his aura and immediately went to greet him. After greeting them, Lu Yi asked, "Do you know the details?" Wan Xiao shook her head. "I don't know for now. It happened too suddenly." Yan Miao said, "Looking at the direction, it should be the Jade Sword Island that is attacking. However, the Jade Sword Island is only a middle-grade spiritual island, and there is no Rizhao guarding it. Moreover, the aura of the few Rizhao who are attacking is very unfamiliar. Although there were many Rizhao on the 10,000 Elephant Sea now, there weren't many of them. After so many years, everyone had basically come into contact with each other. Whether they were strangers or acquaintances, it was easy to sense them. Let's go take a look." As Lu Yi spoke, he rushed towards the source of the commotion. Yan Miao and Wan Xiao followed closely behind. The battle quickly subsided, but an extremely uncomfortable aura came from the direction of the Jade Sword Island. Lu Ye's heart skipped a beat as if something extremely bad was about to happen. Just as Lu Yi was thinking this, a buzzing sound suddenly came. The entire 10,000 Elephant Sea suddenly shook, and in an instant waves swept over. At the same time, a faint red light came from the direction of the Jade Sword Island. In an instant, it became incomparably bright. The red light was like a blood curtain, enveloping the entire Jade Sword Island. It twisted and changed like a living creature. Moreover, Lu Yi also sensed that this red light was like a blood curtain, faintly resonating with something from afar. After a while, they finally arrived at the Jade Sword Island. Lu Yi used his full strength to look inside, and in an instant, his killing intent blazed. Insect Clan. Chapter 2073. Just now, the ones who caused the commotion were actually from the Insect Clan, and 3 of them at that. Their body features were too obvious. Each of them had a carapace covering them. Even the middle-aged man who looked no different from a human now had obvious insect features. On Jade Sword Island, other than the 3 figures of the Insect Clan, there were no other living things. The entire island was filled with corpses, but the strange thing was that the corpses were all deathly pale, as if their blood had been sucked dry. Lu Yi finally understood what had happened. Impressively, it was the three insect races Rizhao attacking Jade Sword Island. Jade Sword Island was only a medium-level island. Even if it had a protective array, how could it withstand the attack of the three insect clan members? That was why it fell in such a short period of time, and even all the cultivators were slaughtered. At this moment, two extremely old-looking insect clan members stood facing each other. Their faces were filled with pain, and their expressions were ferocious, as if they were enduring great torture. In between them there was something that looked like a clay jar. It looked extremely simple, and it was unknown which era it was left behind. What made Lu Yi feel horrified was that the surface of the clay jar had blood-red tentacles that pierced through the bodies of the two insect clan members. He could clearly feel that the clay jar was emitting a terrifying devouring power, swallowing all the foundation of the two insect clan members. Even though they were in endless pain, they did not struggle to resist. Lu Yi did not know what they were doing, but it was impossible for him to leave them alone. The three insect clan members suddenly appeared here and did such a cruel thing. There must be some conspiracy. Especially since Lu Yi knew that the mysterious insect clan high priest knew the truth of the great influence more than anyone else. The middle-aged insect clan member who was standing guard at the side noticed Lu Yi's arrival and immediately rushed towards him. "Stop him!" Lu Yi shouted. In a flash, he passed by the middle-aged insect clan member and raised his hand to summon the fire gourd. Using his Fa Li, he spat out a strange fire towards the two old insect clan members. He instinctively felt that something was wrong, so he did not show any mercy. The strange fire fiercely fell on the two insect clan members in an instant, enveloping them. However, in the next moment there was a sudden change. The clay jar emitted a red light, and where the light passed, the strange fire quickly disappeared. Not annihilation but disappearance. It gave Lu Yi the feeling that it was being absorbed by something. This was the first time he had encountered such a strange thing. The fire gourd was a treasure with tyrannical power. Previously, when he was dealing with Jianghu on the giant red star, he had only needed to casually burn her soul away. But now it had disappeared. Could it be that the clay jar was also a treasure? But even if it really was a treasure, it shouldn't have such a miraculous power. This kind of unforeseen event was obviously not right. Haha, the sacrifice is already done. You can't stop it. Old laughter rang out. It was the voice of the old insectoid on the left. Lu Yi's expression was cold. He immediately put away the fire gourd and took out the sword gourd. But before he could make another move, the two insectoids suddenly screamed. Their old bodies were sucked into the clay jar in the middle like flowing water. At the same time the clay jar shattered. The 10,000 elephant sea once again sent out a huge tremor, but Lu Yi didn't seem to feel it. He only stared at the red whirlpool in the center of the Jade Sword Island. That place was originally where the clay jar was. After it shattered, the red whirlpool appeared. The whirlpool wasn't too big. It was only the height of 3 people, but the strange aura coming from the whirlpool was something Lu Yi had never felt before. It was an extremely strange aura. Lu Yi immediately retreated, distancing himself from the whirlpool. He had a feeling that if he got too close and got sucked in, he wouldn't have a good ending. Almost at the same time the whirlpool formed, in the depths of the starry sky, within the reincarnation tree's main body, the old reincarnation tree suddenly raised its head and looked in this direction. After a short while it muttered to itself, "The loophole has been pried open. Is this the direction of the 10,000 elephant sea? Fortunately, with that person suppressing it, there shouldn't be too much trouble." He lowered his eyes and sighed softly. "The reincarnation tree? I'm afraid it won't be able to hold on this time. The insectoids have jumped out. They must have sensed something. I have to make plans early." Near the Jade Sword Island, the middle-aged insectoid fought with Yen Miao and Luan Xiao for a while and then hurriedly fled for his life. His mission had been completed, so he naturally had to leave this troublesome place. It wasn't that he wasn't a match for the two women. Lu Yi immediately sensed something and chased after him. Today's change was too sudden and he was now confused. The two old insectoids were already dead, so he could only capture this middle-aged insectoid and ask him about the situation. What kind of sacrifice was the insectoids performing? What was with that red whirlpool? He could only look for clues from the insectoid. However, the insectoid was at the late stage of the Sunshine Realm, so it wouldn't be easy for Lu Yi to catch up with him. Fortunately, in front of the insectoid, a tyrannical aura suddenly appeared and rushed towards him. Jiao Yan. She obviously came from the Mermaid Island. She probably sensed something strange here and teleported to the Mermaid Island just like Lu Yi. She just happened to intercept the middle-aged insectoid's escape route. The insectoid was shocked. He had fled in this direction because he sensed that Lu Yi and the others were coming from this direction. He was certain that there were no other Sunshine Realm cultivators in this direction. Who would have thought that another one would suddenly appear? Moreover, the aura was extraordinarily strong. She was obviously at the peak of the Sunshine Realm. Terrified, he quickly dashed to the side. Lu Yi snorted coldly. A drop of precious blood exploded, and he activated the blood escape technique. His speed increased sharply, and he caught up with the insectoid in less than 10 breaths. The sea of blood spread out and enveloped the insectoid. 3 breaths later, Jiao Yan charged into the sea of blood. The sound of an intense battle could be heard from the sea of blood. A moment later, the sea of blood receded. Lu Yi carried the middle-aged insectoid who was covered in blood and gasping for breath, and said in a cold voice, "I ask you answer. If you dare to say no, I'll make you beg for death." With his and Jiao Yan's combined strength, a late-stage Sunshine Realm cultivator wouldn't be able to cause any waves in his sea of blood. The middle-aged insectoid snickered and spat out a mouthful of blood at Lu Ye's face. "Kill me!" The blood was stopped by Lu Ye's spiritual power. It was obvious that he didn't care about his life at all. Very good. Lu Yi stabbed his sword into the insectoid's heart and twisted it. The insectoid's eyes widened. His body stiffened for a moment and then he went limp. Lu Yi threw the insectoid to Miao Yan, who had hurried over. "Take him back and look after him. I'll deal with him later." He didn't kill the insectoid. He only heavily injured him and left him with a little chance of survival. When the matter here was settled, he could use the soul battle to pry into the insectoid's memory and see if he could find any useful information. "What happened?" Jiao Yan asked in a low voice. Lu Yi turned to look at her and replied, "I don't know much." He then told her everything that he saw. Ever since Jiao Yan revealed her true appearance to him outside the Yuan realm, they hadn't seen each other again. Lu Yi could feel that Jiao Yan had been deliberately avoiding him. Since that was the case, he didn't want to force her. If it weren't for this unforeseen event, Jiao Yan probably wouldn't have met him face to face. "Let's go take a look." Jiao Yan heard him and rushed towards Jade Sword Island. It wasn't just the two of them who were rushing towards Jade Sword Island. At this moment, all the Sunshine cultivators in Wanxiangxi were rushing over. The commotion just now was too big and it really made people curious. Naturally, they would come over to investigate the situation. Soon they arrived at Jade Sword Island. Jiao Yan's expression changed as she looked at the blood-red vortex. "This is, senior sister, do you recognize it?" Lu Yi asked. Jiao Yan shook her head. "I don't, but the aura coming from it seems to be useful to me." "Useful to you?" Lu Yi was surprised. Jiao Yan was already at the peak of sunshine. The aura that was useful to her was definitely not ordinary. "I don't know." Jiao Yan's face was full of confusion. She was clearly in a state of confusion. She could feel that the aura coming from the blood-red vortex was very useful to her. If she could cultivate in this environment for a long time, she might be able to reap great benefits. But this feeling was very vague, as if there was a layer between them. While the two were talking, ripples suddenly appeared in the blood-red vortex. Vaguely, a figure could be seen inside. "Something is coming." Lu Yi immediately judged. "Is this the insect path?" In fact, when Lu Yi first saw the blood-red vortex, he felt that it was somewhat similar to the insect path. But he couldn't understand why the insect race would pay the price of 2 sunshine cultivators to open something similar to the insect path. Where does the other end of the blood-red vortex lead to? Almost at the same time as Lu Ye's voice fell, a figure squeezed out of the blood-red vortex. It was indeed squeezing, as if it took a lot of effort to pass through the blood-red vortex. It was an existence with the head of an ox and the body of a human. There were 2 ox horns on his forehead. The left horn was broken and the cut was smooth and neat. It was unknown what cut it off. This was a Yao. He was extremely tall and carried a club bone in his hand. His nostrils exhaled a fiery aura. His entire body exuded an extremely fierce aura. It was as if he had just returned from a bloody battlefield. The spiritual power fluctuations on his body were not weak either. He was in the late sunshine stage. Walking out of the blood-red vortex, the ox demon looked around and fixed his gaze on Lu Yi and Jiao Yan. He raised the club bone in his hand and asked in a booming voice, "2 little insects, where is this?" But before Lu Yi could answer, he suddenly sniffed around. Then his expression changed. "No, this is not the star abyss. Aha, this is a slaughterhouse. As if it had discovered something interesting, the bull monster pounced towards Lu Yi as soon as it finished speaking. Be careful. Jiao Yan shouted. She flashed in front of Lu Yi and met the ox demon head-on. The moment their spiritual power collided, Jiao Yan's body shook and she was immediately sent flying. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. In terms of cultivation, she had reached the peak. Even if there were people stronger than her in this starry sky, they would not be able to defeat her so easily. But this ox demon who had walked out of the blood-red vortex had done it. It's the new year. In a trance, it's the new year again. Old Imo wishes all the officials and lords a smooth journey, good luck, good health, and rolling in wealth. Chapter 2074. The moment they collided, Jiao Yan clearly sensed the opponent's cultivation. It should have been weaker than hers, but she was the one at a disadvantage. This was inconceivable. Just as she steadied herself, she saw Lu Yi flying towards her uncontrollably. He saw that Jiao Yan was no match for the ox demon and rushed to help her, but he was sent flying by the ox demon's staff. Jiao Yan quickly steadied herself and blocked Lu Yi's back with her hands. She channeled her magic power into him, helping him to neutralize the momentum. Lu Yi's right hand trembled slightly. He suppressed the roiling blood in his chest and said in a low voice, "Senior sister, be careful. There's something wrong with this guy." The ox demon that suddenly appeared from the blood-red vortex was different from all the other Rizhao he had seen before. In terms of cultivation, this ox demon was actually about the same as the captured insect Rizhao, but their real strength was far from each other. There seemed to be an extremely strange power hidden in his opponent's mana. It was this power that made his mana more resilient and more destructive. Otherwise, with his current foundation, it would not be so difficult for him to fight a late Sunshine Realm cultivator alone. However, that instant of confrontation had allowed him to clearly realize one thing. He was actually no match for this bull demon. Jiao Yan undoubtedly felt the same. She used her divine sense and said, "I'll hold him back. You kill him." Jiao Yan originally had a lot of doubts, but this ox demon that appeared out of nowhere was obviously not someone she could communicate with. The opponent was so strong that she could only kill him first. Lu Yi nodded. At the same time, he pressed his hand on Jiao Yan's shoulder and channeled his magic power. Jiao Yan felt something and roughly understood Lu Yi's plan. She reached out and grabbed at the void, and a silver spear appeared in her hand. She waved the spear gently and her aura flowed. It was a valiant and heroic move. The ox demon just stood there calmly and hooked his finger at Jiao Yan with a contemptuous look. He obviously did not put Jiao Yan in his eyes. Jiao Yan was furious. She rushed forward with her spear and fought with the ox demon in the blink of an eye. Jiao Yan used her magic weapon. She was undoubtedly going all out. In this state, there were not many opponents in the entire universe who could match her. Spear shadows filled the sky. The secret technique was exquisite. On the other hand, the ox monster's movements looked extremely clumsy and slow. However, such an ox monster was able to block all of Jiao Yan's full-powered attacks with ease. Jiao Yan's eyes were trembling. On one hand, she was shocked by the ox demon's strength. On the other hand, she was excited because she suddenly saw her future path from this ox demon. Although it was just a trace of it, it was still hope. Since ancient times, countless peak Rizhao level cultivators. Star Abyss. What is this place? She had never heard of it before. Outside the intense battle, Lu Yi had already taken out his sword gourd. This bull monster was definitely the strongest monster he had encountered so far. Even Jiao Yan, who had gone all out, was suppressed by it, let alone him, who was only in the early phase of the Sunshine Realm. If he wanted to kill this bull monster, he could only rely on the power of the sword gourd. Jiao Yan had made the suggestion because she knew that he had a spirit treasure. The mouth of the calabash turned upside down. Sword light flashed. Lu Yi shouted, "Senior sister." When the voice rang out, a spirit pattern appeared out of nowhere on Jiao Yan's shoulder. It quickly turned into a circle of light and enveloped her. It was the void spiritual tattoo that Lu Yi had left on her. At the same time, a void spiritual tattoo appeared beside Lu Yi. The sword light pierced through Jiao Yan's shadow and went straight for the ox demon's strong body. Obviously, the bull demon hadn't expected this turn of events. The moment he sensed that something was wrong, his body shook and he shouted, "Coiling dragon." A dragon roar faintly sounded. A dragon shadow suddenly appeared on his body and coiled around his waist. The dragon raised its head and bit the sword light. The sword light from the calabash was actually bitten by the dragon head. The sound of metal grinding against metal was extremely ear-piercing. The sword light became brighter and brighter, but it could not break through the dragon's bite. Lu Yi was shocked. Ever since he was promoted to Sunshine, he had truly understood the power of the attribute treasure. He had repeatedly used the attribute treasure to kill powerful enemies with ease. Even a powerhouse like Great Demon Venerable Zixuan could not resist the terrifying power of the attribute treasure, but this bull demon had done it. What kind of secret technique was that? What kind of method was that? Lu Yi had no time to think. He gritted his teeth and desperately urged the sword light. He was the owner of the calabash, so the sword light was naturally controlled by him. The effect was minimal. The bright sword light slowly pierced forward at a speed visible to the naked eye, but it was tightly bitten by the dragon's bite. If it did not break through the dragon's bite, it could not hurt the ox demon's body. Lu Yi could feel that the power of the sword light was rapidly weakening under such a stalemate. The power of the calabash was strongest at the beginning. After killing the enemy and encountering obstacles, it would be consumed and then needed to be recovered. But there was no chance for Lu Yi to recover. The ox demon used a secret technique that Lu Yi did not understand at all to block the sword light from the calabash. As time passed, the bright sword light quickly dimmed. In just a few breaths of time, the sword light shattered with a crisp crack. The sword light that cost hundreds of millions of spirit jades to nurture was completely gone. If he wanted to restore the power of the calabash, he had to nurture it again. And the dragon shadow that coiled around the ox demon was clearly not as solid as before. The ox demon lowered his head to look at the dragon shadow on his body and flew into a rage. His scarlet eyes glared at Lu Yi. You dare damage my Dao power? Take your treasure to make up for it. Was it easy for him to painstakingly condense this bit of Dao power? This was his capital to establish himself in Star Abyss. He did not expect it to be damaged in a slaughterhouse. When the last word fell, he wrapped himself in a demonic wind and charged at Lu Yi. Fellow Taoist Lu, I'll help you. A vigorous voice came over and pounced at the ox demon. Lu Yi knew who it was when he heard the voice. It was Five Color Island Sui Lin. Three World Island and Five Color Island had always been on good terms. Lu Yi had interacted with Sui Lin several times over the years and was not a stranger. For Sui Lin to appear here, it was obvious that he had sensed the commotion here and came to investigate. Not only him, there were also other Sunshine Immortals overseeing the other top-notch spiritual islands rushing over. Some were already nearby and some were still on the way. Be careful. Lu Yi hurriedly shouted a warning. Sui Lin clearly did not know how powerful this ox demon was. Charging out rashly would definitely not end well. Scram. The ox demon was in a violent mood. Facing Sui Lin's attack, he casually swung his rod. Big words, Sui Lin came quickly and left quickly. His sturdy body fell diagonally towards the myriad elephant sea under the impact of the huge force. Seeing that he was about to fall into the sea, a hand grabbed his arm and lifted him up. Sui Lin had a fearful expression. He raised his head and was extremely grateful. So it's fellow Taoist Gu Tai. Thank you for your help. Gu Tai nodded. Fellow Taoist Sui Lin is too polite. What's the situation with this demon? He had also just arrived here and did not understand the situation. When he saw Sui Lin in danger, he helped him. Otherwise, if Sui Lin really fell into the myriad elephant sea, he would definitely be eroded by the seawater. With Sui Lin's cultivation, his life would not be in danger. However, after being eroded, his magic power would become impure, which was also a big problem. I'm not sure. His strength is strange. Sui Lin recalled the moment when he came into contact with the ox demon. He was actually sent flying without any strength to fight back. That was because he was from the stone tribe and had the endurance. If it was someone else with a weak physique, he would have been injured. This is the insect path? Gu Tai noticed the red whirlpool in the center of the Jade Sword Island. He vaguely felt that it was an insect path, but it was not the same as a normal insect path. Even with his vast knowledge, he could not determine it in a short time. Almost at the same time he was observing the red whirlpool, ripples appeared in the whirlpool, and a figure was faintly discernible within. Someone is coming, Gu Tai said in a low voice. At the same time, Lu Yi, who was teaming up with Jiao Yan to fight the ox demon, also noticed the change in the red whirlpool. His expression immediately fell. The ox demon that suddenly appeared was so powerful. If another one came, who on the myriad elephant sea could fight against it? From the battle just now, it could be seen that only attribute treasures could pose a threat to an expert like the ox demon. However, the power of the two attribute treasures in his hands had been exhausted. What could he use to fight against the enemy? As this thought flashed, Lu Ye's divine sense surged and transmitted his voice everywhere. Fellow Taoists, the change in the Jade Sword Island today is related to the insect race. The enemy is powerful and has strange abilities. Please join forces to fight against the enemy. Do not underestimate them. It's related to the insect race. Many people in the sunshine looked serious. As early as a few years ago, the Three-World Island had revealed the conspiracy of the insect race and the arrival of the general trend. These years, all the major forces had been investigating this matter, but there were no clues. They only knew that this was a disaster that was about to sweep through the entire starry sky. Unexpectedly, today's matter was also related to the insect race. Then it must be related to the arrival of the general trend. So, they could not stay out of it. No matter what, they had to deal with today's trouble first. Perhaps they could find some clues through today's matter. Thinking so, Gu Tai and Sui Lin looked at each other and rushed towards the red whirlpool. Before the two of them could get close, a figure squeezed out of the whirlpool. Sure enough, it's related to the insect race. Gu Tai's expression was cold because the one who came was an insect race member. As soon as this insect race member appeared, he sniffed and then looked in the direction of Mermaid Island. There's the aura of a clansman. He's alive. The captured insect race member Ri Zhaori was escorted back to Mermaid Island by Luan Xiao. He could actually smell the traces. Gu Tai and Sui Lin had already joined forces to fight. Against the insect race, the two of them would not be lenient. Sui Lin, who had suffered a loss once, was much more careful this time. However, after fighting for a while, he was shocked. This was because in terms of cultivation, this insect race member who suddenly appeared had a cultivation level that was similar to him and Gu Tai. However, in a 1 versus 2 situation he was able to defeat Gu Tai and Gu Tai. In just a short while, they both suffered injuries of varying degrees. Fortunately, Ri Zhaori from the other spiritual islands arrived in time and joined in, barely stabilizing the situation. End of chapter. Chapter 2075. Following the commotion, more and more Rikutsu rushed here. After the insect, another enemy appeared from the red vortex. The battle between the three groups near Jade Sword Island was extremely intense. Lu Ye's battlefield had already turned into a sea of blood. He and Jiu Yen were not the only ones in the sea of blood. There were also 2 other Rikutsu who joined later, and their cultivation was at the middle stage. But even with the convenience of the sea of blood, the 4 of them joining forces to deal with the bull demon was unable to gain any advantage. The bull demon's strength was far beyond imagination. The other 2 groups were also like this, fighting with numbers. Although there were not many Rikutsu on Wanxiangxi's side, there were at least 20 of them. On Lu Ye's side it was 4 against 1. The other 2 groups were even more exaggerated, with 7 or 8 Rikutsu joining forces to besiege one enemy. But even so, no group was able to gain the upper hand. On the contrary, the Rikutsu on Lu Ye's side were constantly injured. One of them was even accidentally injured and had to withdraw from the battlefield. Lu Ye was anxious. The current situation was extremely unfavorable for his side. The red vortex was still there. If 3 experts could walk out from it, then there might be more. Once such a situation occurred, there would be no more Rikutsu on Wanxiangxi to stop the enemy. He had to kill one of them first or find a way to close the red vortex. But this thing was opened by the insect race through an inexplicable ritual. Perhaps other than the insect race, no one knew how to close it. Then he had to kill one of them first. Lu Ye made up his mind. In an instant he was already behind the bull demon. He slowly exhaled and all his chi, blood, and Fa Li fiercely poured into his right arm. In an instant his right arm swelled up. The Pan Shan saber was suddenly unsheathed. Saber drawl. He had not used this move for a long time. Relatively speaking, the power of a treasure was stronger and it was easier to use. But he had not given up on this move. He had been using his own Fa Li to nourish the spirit pattern in the scabbard. Under the premise of not using a treasure, this was definitely the strongest move he could use. The saber slashed on the bull demon's protective Fa Li. Just like in the previous battle, he felt an incomparably tough feedback. Even though he had experienced it many times, Lu Ye still felt incredulous. It was hard to imagine that the bull demon could refine his Fa Li to such a degree. The saber draw's power was still very strong. The previous attacks that landed on the bull demon's body could not even break through his protective Fa Li. But this one there was some effect. After the violent power broke through the bull demon's protective Fa, it cut a small wound on his body. Oh? The bull demon revealed an interested look. You actually managed to injure me. Well done. A palm slapped down on Lu Ye's head, but Lu Ye was already prepared. He dodged into the depths of the blood sea, a helpless expression on his face. If the saber draw could not kill the enemy, his other moves would be even more useless. Moreover, the power of brightness was easily neutralized by the enemy. One must know that even if he only cut a small wound on the bull demon's body just now, the power of Fang had already entangled it. The power of Fang had become stronger as he advanced to sunshine. Even a powerhouse like Changfeng had to spend several days to slowly dissolve it, but for this bull demon, it was actually a piece of cake. Could he only ask Huaxi to come out? The power of a treasure could not kill the bull demon, but a real treasure would not. The strongest on the Wanxiangxi was not him, nor was it Jiao Yan. It was Huaxi's little melon. But he had seen Huaxi in seclusion at the mermaid clan's territory. If possible, he did not want to disturb Huaxi at this juncture. But now there was no other way but to ask Huaxi to come out. Just as he was thinking this, a violent tremor suddenly came from the bottom of the 10,000 elephant sea. This kind of tremor had occurred twice before when Rizhao had opened the red vortex. Lu Yi didn't know what was going on. But now it appeared again, and this time the tremor was even greater than the previous two. Accompanied by this tremor, a vast and boundless aura gushed out from the depths of the Wanxiang Sea. In the next moment, the aura condensed into a beam and descended somewhere. In the blood sea, Lu Yi looked up at the source of the aura. His vision penetrated the blood sea and saw the situation on Jade Sword Island. This is. His expression changed, revealing a surprised expression. Constellation Hall. A sunshine's exclamation came from outside. Because at this very moment, a simple and unadorned hall had appeared on the Jade Sword Island. Impressively, it had the appearance of the Constellation Palace, but what appeared here was clearly not the main body of the Constellation Palace. It was only a projection because it looked illusory. The projection of the Constellation Hall wrapped the red vortex tightly. In the blood sea, the bull demon, who had been calm and unruffled even when surrounded by the four sunshines, changed his expression. There's a treasure here? Oh. As if he had seen something inconceivable, he shouted and immediately rushed toward the red vortex. Not only him but the other two experts who came out of the red vortex also rushed in that direction. They were extremely frightened like stray dogs. They were like two different people compared to their previous invincible strength. Lu Yi sensed the bull demon's movements. He hesitated for a moment but did not stop him. Instead, he dispersed the blood sea and let him go. No matter what the appearance of the Constellation Hall's projection meant, just from the bull demon's reaction, it was definitely not a good thing for these uninvited guests. They seemed to want to leave through the red vortex. Lu Yi did not have the confidence to keep them here. Since that was the case, letting them go was not a bad choice. But what Lu Yi did not expect was that these three uninvited guests, who were fine when they came, could not go back. The three figures were blocked outside the Constellation Hall's projection. No matter how hard they tried, they could not break through the projection seal. Moreover, as time passed, the Constellation Hall's projection continued to shrink, and the red vortex slowly became unstable in the process. Lu Ye's eyes lit up. He was still having a headache about how to close the red vortex. He did not expect the Constellation Hall to use its power. Looking at the situation, when the Constellation Hall's projection shrank to a certain extent, the red vortex would definitely collapse. The Constellation Hall was indeed sentient. Back when he first came into contact with the Constellation Hall, Lu Yi had such a conjecture. Back then, the Constellation Hall pulled him in alone and gave him a strange mission. Although he did not leave his name on the Constellation list, he gained many benefits because of it. Thinking back to the bull demon's words just now, it was obvious that the Constellation Hall had sensed the red vortex and was using its own power to destroy it. With the treasure's power, the three sunshine experts in the Wanxiang Sea could not do anything. After a while, the three of them clearly realized that things were not going well. They looked at each other and fled in three different directions. Seeing this, Lu Yi was shocked and hurriedly shouted, "Stop them, don't let them escape." Previously, he was willing to let the three sunshine experts go because he was not as strong as them and could not do anything to them. However, since they could not go back, he could not let them escape. Once experts with such strength escaped from here, it would be a disaster no matter which galaxy they went to. Other than the galaxies where the top realms were located, No other galaxy in the universe could take out the resources of the Wanxiangxi to deal with them. He had to kill them all. Even if he could not kill all three of them, killing one would be good enough. After shouting, Lu Yi took the lead and rushed toward the bull demon. Jiao Yin held her long spear and followed closely by her side. Seeing this, the other sunshine experts did not dare to be negligent. They followed the previous formation to intercept the other two enemies. The bull demon was in the late sunshine realm, so he was very fast. However, no matter how fast he was, he could not be faster than Lu Yi, who had activated the blood escape technique. In an instant, Lu Yi caught up with him. The sea of blood spread out and enveloped him again. Jiao Yin took the opportunity to kill her way into the sea of blood. Under Lu Ye's protection, she stabbed her spear at the bull demon. The bull demon's senses were very sharp. Moreover, he had fought with Jiao Yin many times before, so he naturally knew how strong Jiao Yin was. He did not dare to be careless and struck her with his staff. Jiao Yin gritted her teeth and blocked the attack. With a loud bang, the sea of blood churned. Jiao Yin was stunned and blinked her eyes. This time she was not sent flying by the bull demon like before. The power of the bull demon's attack was obviously weaker than before. She was not sure and continued to fight the bull demon. Lu Yi had already taken out a musical note and was about to contact the three-world island and ask them to invite Wuxia out of seclusion. At this moment, Jiao Yan's voice was heard. "He's become weaker." Lu Yi was stunned. Although I don't know why, he's indeed become weaker and weaker. Jiao Yin had already fought with the bull demon several times. She could clearly feel the bull demon's counterattack. As a peak sunshine expert, she could not be wrong about this. Lu Yi immediately paid attention to the bull demon and found that it was just as Jiao Yin said. The bull demon had become much weaker. In just a short moment, the bull demon had gone from being invincible to being on par with Jiao Yin. Lu Yi's heart skipped a beat. She quickly spread out her spiritual sense and checked the situation of the other two groups. She found that the other two groups were the same as her. The other two strong opponents, who were originally unparalleled in the world, were obviously weakened. In this change, Lu Yi turned her head and looked in the direction of the Jade Sword Island. She saw the shrinking Constellation Palace projection and the swaying red vortex. Her heart gradually became clear. From the looks of it, it was due to the suppression of the red vortex that caused the strength of the bull demon and the other experts to weaken. No wonder the three of them could not wait to return. It was obvious that they knew what would happen next. There's no need to disturb Wuxia. Lu Yi raised the mountain pan Dao in her hand, looked in the bull demon's direction and rushed forward. It's time for our turn. Looks like I've gained a lot this time. I might be able to use this opportunity to clarify a lot of things that I didn't understand before. I might even be able to find out more information about the general situation. Lu Yi had a feeling that the three enemies who had appeared out of nowhere were closely related to the general situation. Wishing everyone a happy new year. I wish everyone luck in the year of the dragon and a bright future. I'll be going out to pay my New Year's greetings. I'll be a little busy during the first month. Sometimes I have to go out or have guests at home. I can only update once. End of chapter. Chapter 2076. The Blood Sea was turbulent as several figures shuttled back and forth. After the Constellation Palace's projection suppressed the red vortex, the originally invincible bull demon's strength rapidly weakened. After a while, the bull demon was besieged by Lu Yi and the others and had no strength to fight back. At this time, the strength he displayed was the standard of a normal late-stage sunshine expert. His previous strength was obviously not right. Jiao Yan's spear pierced through the bull demon, and the other two sunshine experts pounced on him. Lu Yi took advantage of the situation and slashed with his blade. The battle ended. The bull demon was heavily injured and unconscious. At this moment, he had lost the ability to easily dissolve the power of brightness. A strange force wrapped around his wound, hindering his recovery. Lu Yi kept the Blood Sea and looked at the other two battlefields. Without exception, the other two enemies were also taken down. No one killed them. Obviously, all the sunshine experts were curious about the strength they had displayed. Naturally, they wanted to keep them alive. A group of sunshine experts gathered at Lu Ye's side. Now that he was the master of the Wanxiangxi and was the first to arrive, everyone naturally wanted to ask about the situation. However, before everyone could gather together, something happened on the Jade Sword Island. The red vortex suppressed by the Constellation Palace's projection rippled violently, and a black shadow loomed on the other side. Something is coming. Jiao Yin obviously saw the change on the other side. She clenched her silver spear and secretly urged her Fa Li. Lu Ye's expression was solemn. He had deeply experienced the bull demon's strength, so he was naturally very vigilant. After carefully observing for a while, he felt relieved. It shouldn't be coming. Although he didn't know why the red vortex alarmed the Constellation Palace, with the power of the treasure suppressing it, no matter what kind of strong existence was on the other side, it wouldn't be as easy as before. This could be seen from the fact that the shadow on the other side couldn't condense. And according to the current situation, the red vortex wouldn't even last long before it shattered. Almost at the same time as Lu Ye's voice fell, the Constellation Palace's projection covering the red vortex suddenly faded inexplicably. This projection wasn't a real entity, and it looked illusory and ethereal. Now that it faded, it was almost undetectable. At this moment, the shadow on the other side suddenly condensed, and the red vortex shook violently. "Not good," Lu Yi exclaimed. This situation was completely different from what he had expected. He had no idea why the projection of the Constellation Hall would suddenly fade. However, this obviously gave the other party an opportunity to take advantage of the situation. The red vortex wriggled. The fourth uninvited guest had arrived at the myriad phenomenon see today. Judging from the blurry shadow just now, Lu Yi thought that some fierce enemy was going to come out, but when he saw what it was this time, he couldn't help but be stunned. Jiao Yin was also dumbfounded. "What is this?" Jiao Yin frowned. "A bridal sedan?" Lu Yi replied hesitantly. The main reason was that the scene before his eyes was too miraculous. This time, the thing that had charged into the myriad phenomenon sea from the red vortex was not a living being of flesh and blood, but a bridal sedan. It looked like something used in the mortal world to pick up a bride and get married. The bridal sedan was covered with red decorations, and there were two large red flowers inlaid on both sides of the sedan. It looked very festive. The other Rizhao also saw this strange scene, and they were all surprised. No one could figure out what was going on and what was this bridal sedan. Many Rizhao probed with their divine senses, but in the investigation of the many Rizhao, this bridal sedan was the most ordinary one. There was nothing special about it. The more this was the case, the more vigilant the Rizhao became. Something strange that could charge out of the red vortex could not be ordinary no matter how they thought about it. The fact that they couldn't detect it meant that this bridal sedan was strange beyond imagination. Ugh! A soft groan was heard. It was the unconscious bull demon slowly waking up. The physique of the demon clan was indeed strong. Even after suffering such serious injuries, he was able to wake up. The other two uninvited guests were still unconscious. When the bull demon opened his eyes, he realized that he was bound. He turned his head and looked around. His gaze suddenly fixed on the bridal sedan, and he immediately exclaimed, "A ghost sedan!" Lu Yi turned his head and looked at him. His heart skipped a beat. The bridal sedan and the bull demon should have come from the same place. Moreover, from the bull demon's reaction, he obviously recognized this bridal sedan and knew something. He immediately asked, "What is this? Tell me everything you know." The bull demon said eagerly, "Yes, take me there first. I want to get on the sedan. When I get on the ghost sedan, I'll tell you everything you want to know." Lu Yi was surprised. What's the benefit of getting on the sedan? If not, the bull demon would not be so enthusiastic. The bull demon did not answer. He only shouted anxiously, "Hurry up and take me on the sedan before it's too late." Lu Yi wanted to ask why it was too late. At this moment, the ghost sedan, which had been unresponsive all this time, suddenly floated. Then a strange power spread out from the ghost sedan. It was like divine sense, but it was not. Lu Yi had never felt this power before. The power was as vast as the sea. In an instant, it swept across the entire Wanxiang Sea and then radiated to the Wanxiang Galaxy. It suddenly retracted and condensed on Jiao Yin. Jiao Yin instinctively felt that something was wrong. The door of the ghost sedan suddenly opened. A red ribbon flew out from it and rolled toward Jiao Yin. It was so fast that even an expert like Jiao Yin did not have time to react. The red ribbon wrapped around her and suddenly retracted. Jiao Yin flew toward the ghost sedan with a stunned expression. She plunged into the sedan and disappeared. After taking Jiao Yin, the ghost sedan was about to fly away. "You want to leave?" Lu Yi was furious. He quickly chased after the ghost sedan. If it was anyone else, he would have let it go, but Jiao Yin, the bull demon, shouted, "Take me with you." He looked as if he was afraid that Lu Yi would leave him behind. Lu Yi did not want to pay attention to him, but he thought that this guy obviously knew something about the ghost sedan. Perhaps he would be useful. He grabbed the bull demon and used the blood escape technique. His body turned into a bloody light. When he made his move, the other Rizhao also chased after him. Although they came from different galaxies and came from different forces, they had stayed on the Wanxiangxi for so many years. Many of them were friends with Zhou Yan. Naturally, they would not stand by and watch. The ghost sedan's speed was not fast at first, but it was obviously increasing by a lot. Lu Yi, who was chasing after it, saw that the ghost sedan was getting farther and farther away from him. No matter how he used the blood escape technique, it was useless. He gritted his teeth and raised his Panshan saber. As his magic power surged, a huge saber light slashed toward the ghost sedan. The saber hit the ghost sedan, but the giant saber light did not damage it at all. Instead, with this attack, a large red ribbon floated out of the ghost palanquin once again, whipping towards Lu Yi across the air. It was completely different from Zhou Yan's previous encounter. This red ribbon only rolled toward Zhou Yan, but whipped toward Lu Yi. It was as if the ghost sedan had retaliated. Almost at the same time that Lu Yi saw the red ribbon, his vision was covered by a blood-red hue. He vaguely heard the sound of something breaking. His whole body suddenly became sticky, followed by a wave of dizziness. His protective magic power was instantly shattered, and a series of cracking sounds came from his body. He did not know how many bones in his body were broken. Only then did he realize that under the ghost sedan's attack, the bull demon in his hand was whipped into a bloody mist without making a sound. He was also heavily injured. His body tightened as if something had wrapped around him. Then his body flew uncontrollably in a certain direction. His consciousness also became dizzy. The Rizhao chased for a while, but the ghost sedan could no longer be seen. Because at that moment, the ghost sedan seemed to have escaped into the underworld and disappeared. This made them want to chase after it, but they did not know where to start. Oh no! Wu Qima's face was ashen. He did not care about Zhou Yan's life or death. They did not have much of a friendship, but nothing could happen to Lu Yi. Not to mention that Lu Yi was Su Yuqing's Taoist companion, he was also the master of Mount Fangsuan. If something happened to him, it would not be a small problem. Fellow Taoist Wu, don't worry. Fellow Taoist Lu should be fine. Just now, the sedan did not seem to want to kill him. Sui Lin stood beside Wu Qima and comforted him. Lu Yi himself was in a daze because of his heavy injuries, so he did not know what had happened at all. However, the others saw it clearly. His giant blade slash welcomed the counterattack of the bridal sedan chair. Under that attack, not even the bones of the ox monster remained. Logically speaking, Lu Yi should not have been spared either. But in reality, the moment the red ribbon touched Lu Yi, it changed direction and swept him into the bridal sedan chair. From what they had seen before, the strange sedan should have only wanted to capture Zhou Yan, but for some reason it captured Lu Yi as well. As for why it captured Zhou Yan, no one knew. If it was because of the woman's identity, it would be wrong because Zhou Yan was not the only female Rizhao present. Since that was the case, it could only be because of cultivation. Among the Rizhao present, Zhou Yan's cultivation was the highest. Of course, this was only a guess. No one knew what the reason was. Just now, the bull demon called the sedan a ghost sedan, and he wanted to get on it. A Rizhao suddenly spoke. He was the one who had joined forces with Lu Yi just now. Naturally, he had heard the bull demon's words. If that's the case, there might be some benefits in the ghost sedan. Whether there are benefits or not, we will know after asking. Sui Lin turned his head and looked at the other two unconscious enemies. What the bull demon knew they should also know. Not only the ghost sedan, the Rizhao wanted to know more. On Jade Sword Island, the projection of Constellation Hall had disappeared. The red vortex had also disappeared. The chaos had ended with the disappearance of the Island Lord of All Things Island and the Island Lord of Three World Island. After interrogating the two uninvited guests, the various Rizhao finally understood some secrets that had never been known to others. They also finally understood why the general trend was descending. After this battle, with all things sea as the center, the various forces worked hard to accumulate their strength in order to deal with the general trend. For a time, the number of large-scale and high-level battles in the entire starry sky decreased. End of chapter. Chapter 2077. In the slightly dark and enclosed environment, the light of the candlelight illuminated the surroundings. When Lu Yi woke up, he felt pain all over his body. A familiar fragrance lingered at the tip of his nose. Behind his head was a warm and soft pillow. On his chest there was a hand covering his heart. A gentle mana came from the palm, which was obviously helping him heal. Lu Yi did not move. He slowly recalled what had happened before. He chased after the ghost sedan and caused the ghost sedan to counterattack. He almost died on the spot. He did not die, but the bull demon that was with him died without a trace. Many things before that were unclear. He vaguely had some guesses, but he could not confirm them. Your injuries are not too serious. You should be fine after a few days of rest. In the quiet environment, Jiao Yan's voice sounded, as if a burden had been lifted. Seeing that Lu Yi did not respond, Jiao Yan frowned. Are you going to lie like this forever? Lu Yi suddenly showed a pained expression. My head is dizzy and my spiritual soul is a little unstable. He used the matter of his spiritual soul as an excuse. Jiao Yan really could not judge whether it was true or false. She could only check the condition of Lu Ye's physical body. Whether there was anything wrong with his spirit ocean, she was completely unsure. Thinking back to when Lu Yi was thrown into the room with his body covered in blood, her heart skipped a beat. She almost thought that Lu Yi was dead. She checked his body in fear and found that the miserable state of Lu Ye's body wasn't his own, but someone else's. Then continued to rest. Jiao Yan sighed. She was at her wit's end. Since the last time, she had been avoiding Lu Yi and tried not to have anything to do with him. Several years had passed, but she did not expect that some things could not be avoided. God seemed to be against her, throwing her and Lu Yi into such a completely enclosed environment. A man and a woman alone together day and night made her feel uncomfortable all over. Lu Yi lay down and realized that he was lying on Jiao Yan's lap. Obviously, Jiao Yan had been taking care of him while he was unconscious. There was a moment of silence. Lu Yi was still thinking about what had happened before, but Jiao Yan's mind was filled with all kinds of thoughts. After all, it was impossible to pretend that nothing had happened. Moreover, the future of this trip was uncertain. No one knew if the two of them would be trapped here forever and never be able to escape. If that was the case, then they could only rely on each other for survival. Since they could not avoid it, they would have to talk about it. At any rate, they could not continue living in such an awkward atmosphere in the future. They were all cultivators. There was no need for them to care so much about certain matters. With that thought, Jiao Yan made her decision. I'll talk and you listen. Don't ask and don't speak, she suddenly said. Lu Ye's train of thought was interrupted as she looked into Jiao Yan's eyes. Because Jiao Yan was lying on Lu Ye's lap, their eyes met and they were almost within reach. Jiao Yan's eyes flickered and she avoided his gaze. Tell me. Lu Yi finally realized what was going on. Jiao Yan took a deep breath. Although she had already made up her mind, she still found it hard to say. She gritted her teeth and said, You're a sunshine now, so you have some understanding of the external incarnation technique. Bansi. Her voice trembled slightly, but she forced herself to calm down. Is one of my incarnations. Back then, when Shinner was in charge of Wushuang Island, I was worried, so I sent my incarnation to help him. Shinner did not know about this. He has never seen my incarnation. Lu Yi thought to himself just as I thought. He had already guessed this before. If Bansi was really Jiao Yan's real body, then many things could not be explained. After all, Jiao Yan was a peak sunshine cultivator. How could she be affected by the heaven desire demonic spider? Therefore, Bansi's cultivation was real because she was just an incarnation. Seeing Lu Ye's reaction, Jiao Yan was surprised. You already knew? Lu Yi just stared at her and blinked. Jiao Yan was confused. What's wrong? Lu Yi raised his hand and pinched his mouth. His meaning was obvious. You told me not to talk just now. Jiao Yan was furious. She raised her hand and patted his chest. You can say it now. She had finally gathered her courage and was ready to talk to Lu Yi about this matter. However, Lu Yi played this trick. Lu Ye's chest was already broken in several places. After being patted by her, he immediately groaned. Jiao Yan panicked and blushed. Her action was too intimate. She did not know why she did it just now. She quickly patted Lu Ye's chest to comfort him. However, after rubbing twice, she felt that something was wrong. For a moment she froze. I'm fine. You don't have to worry about it. Lu Yi waved his hand and said, I did have a guess about this. I only confirmed it after you told me. Jiao Yan tried to calm herself down, but she did not know what to say. Seeing her like this, Lu Yi asked, Where is Bansi now? Jiao Yan looked at him faintly. She's dead. How did she die? Lu Yi was shocked. I killed her. Jiao Yan played it down. What? Do you feel sorry for her? Lu Yi was speechless. After a long time he said, Why did you kill her? Jiao Yan snorted coldly. My incarnation's cultivation method is special. It requires a body of primordial yin. After what you did to her, she can no longer cultivate. What's the point of keeping her? But Lu Yi opened his mouth and did not know what to say for a moment. No wonder he had not seen Bansi since then. It turned out that this was the reason. Bansi was killed by Jiu Yan. However, Bansi was Jiu Yan's incarnation. Should he take revenge? How could he take revenge? He couldn't take revenge on Jiu Yan. That was unreasonable. His mind was in a mess. The truth he had been searching for many years was suddenly placed in front of him. However, Lu Yi found that the result was not what he wanted. Suddenly he frowned. That's not right. Jiu Yan blinked. What's wrong? Lu Yi looked at her. Senior martial sister, have you forgotten that I also cultivate a secret technique like incarnation? If he did not have the precious blood incarnation, he would have been deceived by Jiu Yan. However, when he thought about it carefully, some things did not make sense. Jiu Yan pursed her red lips and did not speak. Lu Yi continued, if you really killed her, how could you know so much about her? So you didn't kill her. You took her back. It was just like how he took back his precious blood incarnation. After he took back his precious blood incarnation, he could clearly see everything that the precious blood incarnation had experienced. What's the difference? Jiu Yan looked at him stubbornly. The truth is that there is no Bansi in this world. There is a difference. Lu Ye's expression was serious. If Bansi was really killed by Jiu Yan, then everything would completely disappear. However, since Bansi was taken back, it was different. Bansi had become a part of Jiu Yan. In other words, she was originally a part of Jiu Yan. Sooner or later she would be taken back. It was just that what happened last time had happened earlier. Jiu Yan was annoyed. I'm telling you this today to tell you that Bansi's matter has nothing to do with me. Moreover, I have already been married. Senior martial sister has already been married? Lu Yi was shocked. He had never heard of this at all. Jiu Yan said, if I hadn't been married, where would Shin come from? Lu Yi blinked. Didn't you pick up Chu Shin? He also. I see that your face is ruddy. You should be fine now. Heal yourself. Saying this, Jiu Yan angrily pulled Lu Yi aside and shrank into the shadow. Her heart was full of helplessness. Why did Chu Shin tell others everything? Furthermore, Han Xiai had originally appeared in front of Lu Yi and Chu Shen with a different appearance. So even if something had really happened, Lu Yi and the others shouldn't have been able to track her down. However, at the last moment, Han Xiai had revealed her true appearance to Lu Yi. Bansi was her precious blood incarnation. What Bansi did was the manifestation of her inner thoughts. However, until today, Lu Yi still did not understand why Bansi did that. As a result, Lu Yi was in an awkward position today. Perhaps she was unwilling? The precious blood incarnation probably did not want Lu Yi to remember a face that had nothing to do with her. Originally, she wanted to have a good talk with Lu Yi to solve their problems. However, this talk did not solve the problem. Instead, it became more troublesome. On the other side, Lu Yi grimaced in pain. However, there was nothing he could do. He could only continue to lie on the ground and heal himself. 2 days later, Lu Yi felt much better. He stood up to investigate. For 2 whole days, Jiu Yan ignored him. When Lu Yi was recuperating earlier, he had roughly surveyed the surroundings. This place was like a secluded room. There were a few lit incense candles all around. The light in the room wasn't too dark, but it wasn't too bright either. Strangely, the candles did not show any signs of burning. It was as if they could continue to burn until the end of time. There was a window on both sides of the room. Red curtains hung from the window. Right in front of him there was an exit. The door was tightly shut. Didn't he get sucked in by the ghost palanquin? Where is this place? With doubts, Lu Yi walked towards the tightly shut door. He raised his hand and pushed it. However, the door did not budge. He channeled his magic power but still could not push it open. Lu Yi frowned. He raised his hand and pulled out the Pan Shan saber. Jiu Yan's voice rang out. Don't do anything. If you touch anything here, something bad might happen. Actually, there was no need for her to remind him. Lu Yi felt it himself. Almost at the same time he pulled out the Pan Shan saber, an invisible malice enveloped him. It was as if he dared to use the saber, nothing good would come of it. Jiu Yan had clearly experienced this before. That was why she reminded Lu Yi. Since she had spoken, she did not hold back. She reminded Lu Yi, we seem to be in that ghost palanquin. That ghost palanquin is not that big, right? Lu Yi asked. When he observed it on the Wanxiang Sea, the ghost palanquin was not that big. It could only hold 1 person. Although this secluded room was not too big, it could not hold only one person. The ghost palanquin has its own secrets. Look outside the window and you will know that you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.